Sort of Coming Chapter 1099. The sky and the earth are clear and bright, washing away the old dust. With an oil paper umbrella under his arm, Qin Ping walked slowly towards the small rented house. Although he was seriously injured, he was relieved of his weight. Bypassing the familiar Yashan temple when he used to set up a fortune-telling booth as a Daoist priest, Qin Pingon often climbed over the wall to watch the intrigues of the underlings and study their words. Using means to find Gu Kan's traces, Qin Pingon spoke to him, gave Gu Kan an address and agreed to meet there. Of course, the earth immortals and monks of the upper 5 realms often have means of concealing the weather, and Gu Kan did it on purpose, worrying that Qin Ping would not find him. Qin Ping stepped into a Tianshui alley, and 3 practitioners walked towards him from a distance. Among them was a tough man with arms as long as his knees. Guan Yu was a young man with a gloomy expression. Hongtu, so what if you are not a child anymore? Although you can't be as extraordinary as the sword fairy in ancient times, you can take the head with the flying sword of the founder of the mountain, but you still have to be invincible in the world and famous in the world. The situation is good. Don't underestimate yourself and be discouraged blindly, it will waste your time and energy. The young man nodded with a dull expression, not knowing whether he listened in, or whether it went in from the left ear and out from the right ear. Seeing the figure in the green shirt at the corner of the alley, the man glanced quickly, not paying too much attention, but lowered his voice even more, first told the young man named Hong Tu a few words, and then turned his head to look at the man with 2 eyes. The young woman jumping square with her feet together. Her bones were fresh and her face was moving. Seeing the uncle's gaze, she immediately behaved, and the man turned his head and continued to say to them, "This time the master ordered you to come down the mountain with me. Travel you can only return to the sect after traveling millions of miles across the 7 countries. I hope you understand the truth that there are people outside the mountains and there are people outside the mountains. You must know that there are countless strange people who have been buried in the dust. Often it is only because the law has not arrived and the real person does not show his face, or we pass each other in the busy city, or we don't know each other across the street." Coincidentally, the woman raised her brows and couldn't help laughing. "Master, there is someone walking away with a sword in front. Is he the so-called master? There are some things that a man should not say. Leaving the sect this time and practicing in the world of mortals, one is to let Hong Tu relax and not be lifeless. He always feels hopeless because he can't practice the magic of the fairy family, which leads him to make several pieces in the world. It's a chivalrous thing to help him regain his spirits. What's more, let the head behind him secretly handpicked as the successor's personal disciple, to learn more about the world, mainly to come to a certain Taoist temple in the capital of Yushuan Kingdom to help her find an opportunity for a fairy family. It turns out that there are 3 natural red lines on the brows of her heavenly court, which are signs of the so-called heavy murder on the mountain, so it takes her to hone in the world of mortals for a few years to get rid of the evil spirit all over her body, and to know the truth of hiding the edge before she can study my family's immortal method. All in all, it is to let her know that it is far from enough compared to the top, and make Hong to feel that it is more than enough compared to the bottom. The leader is not bad and hardworking." Seeing that there was still a long distance between him and the green-clothed guest, the man still used the secret method of gathering voices to form a line, and pointed out to the 2 juniors, "Bao Shu Hong Tu, let's walk the rivers and lakes." When meeting a stranger for the first time, it depends on the person's skill level and martial arts depth. It is not difficult for those who meet but not for those who are difficult. Remember to pay extra attention to their breathing and footsteps. For example, the person in front of you does have some martial arts skills. It's just that his complexion is slightly pale, his breathing is slightly stagnant and his turbidity varies, and the force of each footstep landing is not even. It can be seen that the foundation is good, probably because of the excessive drinking, the spirit is a little weaker. Qin Pingon had no choice but to pretend not to hear this comment. The young woman named Bao Shu in the team is indeed suitable for cultivating Taoism. It is indeed a piece of jade in the rough, with the aptitude of an earth immortal. Probably they all came into being as the times require, and there are such characters in every world nowadays. Some sects are busy. Nian Ganlang of the Ministry of Justice has long secretly dispatched more people to Aquarius continent and even Tongya continent to find all kinds of cultivator embryos. The 16 geniuses sent to Luapa Mountain by the Dali Imperial Court have already boarded the military ferry and will soon arrive at Nujiadu. The woman asked, "Uncle Gao, I heard from Uncle He that there are immortal fairies, inns and fairies in the world. As long as someone finds out the exact address, you will see monks and spirit gods all over your eyes? The man smiled and said, to put it lightly, it's not so easy to meet. You just ran into a group of chi refiners in the deserted temple by chance. I heard from the master that since ancient times, there have been land gods and gods who have seen their heads and tails. When they first learned Taoism, they often had orders from their masters to teach them to make oaths. You can use the immortal method at will, and you should not be greedy for fame in the world of mortals outside the mountains, so as not to mislead your children and make them mistakenly think that refining qi and cultivating the Tao is a smooth path, some kind of shortcut. Let's say that the founder of our sect, even though he is a heavenly genius, has gone through untold hardships. When his merits and virtues are perfect, he finally forges into a flying sword. Within 100 feet, the blue light is dazzling and he can cut off the heads of bandits at will. Such as picking out a bag easy to turn the palm, it is the realm of the ancient sword fairy. More than 200 years ago, the old Huang Li, a fairy mansion in the mountains with many fairy traces in local chronicles, gradually became a Jianghu sect that only passed on fists and kicks. The few volumes of Daoist scriptures left by the patriarch, no one can study them except the current master. Whether it is from a wealthy family or a master in the mountains, I am afraid that it will become an old style. The woman looked longingly and said, Uncle Gao, I heard that there is a Taoist priest surnamed Wu in the capital, who is proficient in fortune-telling, has a good fortune-telling reputation, and has a good reputation for being unyielding. The fortune-telling booth is nearby, let's go and have a look? The man smiled and said, the people in the market are not real and this kind of person is unlikely to be a god. When we go to Chongyang Temple, if you are still free, you can go to the stall to try your luck. If that Taoist is really a strange person playing in the world of mortals, aliens are also the good fortune you should have. In an alley, the two sides approached. Not to mention the legendary person who practiced Taoism and became an immortal, and never fell asleep when he was full of spirits. Even a person who practiced martial arts in the world with a restrained spirit shouldn't be so sleepy and drowsy during the day. The man glanced at each other, feeling very sorry, but he didn't forget to see the needles and told the two juniors of the sect and said in a thread, the patriarch of this school has a saying, wine, sex, wealth and things are entangled with the living. The celestial family is quiet, the way is on the top path, men and women are smelly and they miss longevity most. This person is frivolous and sleepy. If the senior brother in charge is here, just recite the mantra, take a sip of talisman water and spray it on his face. You can get rid of the entanglement of the Sandman and Nightmare, and restore your mind to be full. If you can learn to control yourself in the future, I think this person's journey to the top of martial arts will not stop here. The two sides passed each other. After walking a dozen or so steps, Bao Shu laughed softly and said, Master is famous for his kind heart. According to his temper, he will definitely stop and talk to this person. Those who are of the same generation as the head, except for the uncle Gao Zhu, privately say that her master is a good man. When encountering injustice outside the mountain, take care of it. If you encounter unfortunate people in the world, you will help them. For this reason, the development of the sect and his own practice have been affected a lot, but the head of the sect always says that a loss is a blessing. Not long after she went up the mountain, she overheard some harsh words over the past few years, saying that the sect master was too soft-hearted, not firm in his Taoism, and not like a person who practiced Taoism, which resulted in him having little academic ability but no moral ability. Deep down in her heart, she felt that these statements were true. A person who cultivates the Tao must have the appearance of among gods, and should not put a clear Taoist heart that should be shining in the mud and defile his own spirit. Hong Tu didn't know whether it was a coincidence or a blessing in his heart. He turned his head suddenly, just in time to see the man in the blue shirt with the sword turned his head to look at him, and he looked at him. I heard a strange voice saying in my ears, if you have leisure time, you can look for the stall of Daoist Wu and calculate the future. It's very clever, the price is fair and you won't waste your money. Hong Tu's heart was shaken, and when he saw the other party pointing to his ear, maybe he was signaling the tip of his ear and happened to overhear their conversation, and they talked about the fortune-telling booth. Hong Tu turned around and asked hastily, please enlighten me, senior, if someone is late in martial arts and is not a child, can he really become a master of martial arts? But I saw that the man in the green shirt who didn't show the mountains and the water showed a ladder cloud vertical method like a light jumping technique. His feet overlapped and cracked in the air, and his figure was higher than the eaves of the alley in an instant. Trace. Bao Shu heard the movement behind her, turned her head and took a look, only saw the cyan corner of the clothes. She was not surprised and asked, "Uncle, are you a master?" The man didn't feel that he was mistaken and said with a smile, "The movement is not small and it is so tall." Qin Pingon sat on a roof, thought for a while, looked in the direction of Xiao Mountain, and didn't bother Ma Kexuan's disciples who hadn't matured yet. It is only natural to repay kindness and revenge, and it is not only a matter of one's own family but also a matter of the world. As for that woman who has a pretty good foundation and is suitable for going to the mountains to practice Taoism, it is hard to say whether she can become a real monk. Not boasting, if Sun Yuanji hadn't met Zhu Lian and Jiang Chu hadn't entered Luopa Mountain, most of them would have disappeared. Forced to raise his spirits, Qin Pingon chose a secluded alley and fell to the ground. It has been a long time since he wanted to sleep until he was full. Gu Kan and his party crossed the streets and alleys in Yongjia County. The national teacher Huang Lai was a clueless person. It was the maid Gu Lingyu who asked for directions and found a secluded alley that didn't shit. Outside the gate of the small house, apart from Qin Pingon who was squatting on the steps with his hands covered in sleeves, there was also a group of unfamiliar faces standing there, apparently chatting away. Qin Pingon had a somewhat sluggish expression that could not be concealed, and it was obvious that he was seriously injured. This familiar scene made Gu Kan's face darken a bit. Gu Kan walked forward slowly, asking the result with her eyes. Qin Pingon said in his heart, "It's not bad, it's an acceptable price." The Yeo sword was broken and there is still a natal robe that needs to be refined and repaired again. Dozens of less important Qi palaces have abolished the foundation. Repair. But it is not without benefits. In the long run it will definitely not lose. Just take this opportunity. Ning Yao is right, Yuba seeks the truth and is more pragmatic than others. The Immortal ascends to the ascension except for the last step. Before reaching the bottleneck of the fairyland, the monks are more pragmatic. What's more, Qin Pingan's current road of cultivating Taoism, after passing the biggest hurdle of Yuanying's return to Yupu, has become extremely simple. It is nothing more than refining swords. When it comes to refining swords, it is even simpler, just eating gold refined copper coins and the dragon-slaying stone. Qin Pingon had already made arrangements for gold, fine copper coins, to discuss with the Dalisong family, and to do business with Beiju Luzhou Muomahi Lu family and Sanlang Temple. Let's go. According to Jing Zhezhong's estimate in Tianwai at that time, as long as Qin Pingon eats another 1,500 gold and fine copper coins, Jing Zhongyue can be promoted to Jing Qiyu's rank, and the number of flying swords that are differentiated, there is hope raise it to 800,000. If you are more optimistic, Qin Pingon can even think about the number of millions. So the real difficulty lies in the dragon-cutting stone. Gold and fine copper coins are considered priceless but not marketable, but the dragon-killing stone is typically priceless and has no market. Selling others. So even Zhou Xian personally helped matchmaking on the top of Jilin Peak before, and he couldn't guarantee that he would be able to help find the seller. One can imagine how difficult it is. Gu Kan stared at him blankly. "Are you sure you have wiped out Mashi?" Qin Pingon changed the topic. "I took a temporary trip to the Great Wall of Sword Qi, met your master and chatted casually. Baidi City will be closed soon, and he invited a female sword fairy named Xing Dan. Even though the guard is a ghost, she has very high swordsmanship and has a long history. Her swordsmanship has been passed down side by side with Zhou Xian's teaching in recent times." Gu Kan nodded. To be able to let Jing Zhuzhong personally invite the sword cultivator to be the stalker, the Taoism must not be weak. Gu Kan said in a heartfelt voice, "The injury is not serious. After returning to Luopa Mountain, do you need to retreat for a while?" Qin Pingon said, "It doesn't hinder Lu Xianyang from being the best man." Gu Kan said, "If it's really not possible, let Lu Xianyang postpone the wedding banquet." Qin Pingon looked straight at Gu Kan. Gu Kan said helplessly, "Joke tease, make a joke seriously. I'm not worried about your compromising your Taoism. In case something hinders your Taoism, let's talk a few light words to help you relieve your boredom." Qin Ping stood up slowly and introduced them one by one. "I won't let you be busy for nothing. Let me introduce you. My pseudonym is Pu Lu and my real name is Su Fu. I'm in the nascent soul realm. There's not much chance of breaking through. Breaking through the realm is not difficult. Shinku, the bottleneck of the 7 realms of warriors, you can enter the Yuanyu realm immediately. I have already discussed with them. As long as you are willing to recruit, they can go to your side. Just take care of the food, pay or not, look at your mood." These former superior men, who were brought out of Ma Mansion by Qin Pingon, were either old gods or great masters. They each had a meal and hung up. The old woman was burned at the stake, and the ghost guard was given a solid meal. It was even worse for Grandmaster Shin. In short, they were all miserable to the point where people couldn't bear to look back. Now they just think about it and their livers tremble. If Qin Jianxian hadn't asked them to follow, saying that there was an opportunity to give away, the old woman would have thought of running away, not to mention Yu Xiangua, she would have thought of traveling to other continents. As for Guangyu, he also has the idea of returning to his homeland, and Shinku even wants to find a clean place in the wilderness. At least for a year and a half, the old warrior is a living person and he doesn't want to see him again. Gukin remained silent. I came to help, please. It's just watching from the sidelines, and in the end you talk to me about the reward? If it were someone else, Gukin would probably just say, I don't collect waste. Qin Pingon raised his hand and patted Gukan's shoulder lightly. You, a new suzerain who was born in the genealogy of Baidi City, should I introduce you some children of famous schools with strict ancestral precepts, an upright gentleman with dignity? Be open and aboveboard with you every day? What's more, this group of people who have just suffered a lot, are the most honest, and they can be used by your new sect. Their realm is not high, but they all have a lot of minds. They know how to behave and are willing to do things. Gukin glanced at Qin Pingon, didn't say anything, turned her head to look at those few. He is polite and courteous in dealing with people now, without leaking water, clasped his fists and said with a smile, Fortunately, my family is not big now. If I can get 3, it is a blessing for the younger generation to have the help of an elder. Although I don't know the identity of the Confucian shirt youth in front of me, but as long as he is Qin Jiangxian's friend, how bad is his identity? Therefore the 3 of them all looked flattered and returned the gift one after another. In fact, 1 nascent soul and 1 golden elixir, plus a 7th realm martial artist who is about to enter the far journey realm, is not bad. Just such a number 3 person who founded a sect on any continent, as long as he doesn't compare with the time-honored sects, the atmosphere is not small. Just say that a few decades ago in Shujian Lake Lu Zimeo's Xianxia Island was almost such a family property? Gu Lingyan pouted. These 3 are lucky. After entering my son's sect and going out, I got an extra amulet. After all, the authentic ancestral court of my sect is the Baidi City and Jingzhuzhong. It depends on the owner to beat the dog. Even if the 3 of them hit a hard nail, the patriarch Gukin doesn't have enough face, so does Jingzhuzhong have enough face? And they, as the characters personally recommended by Qin Pingon, on the side of the suzerain Gukin, they have an extra life-saving talisman invisibly. Gukin introduced Huang Lai, who had just been recruited by his side. Huang Lai has just stepped down as a national teacher. Qin Pingon clasped his fists and said with a smile, I've seen Senior Huang. Huang Lai looked solemn and solemnly returned the gift. Little golden pill, how can you be worthy of the word senior? To practice Taoism and longevity, those who have achieved it are the first. I have met Mr. Qin. Qin Pingon couldn't help laughing. Gu Lingyue laughed unceasingly. Hey, he gave a unique opinion for Sir. Old man Huang is so good at flattering people, no wonder he can be a national teacher. Qin Pingon asked, what about others? Since Gukin is here, Lu Xianying must be indispensable. Gukin said with a smile, this guy ran to Jinwu Mountain to block the door. Qin Ping rubbed his brows. Gukin said, I declare in advance that it was his idea that we partnered up to meet in Yushuan Kingdom this time, and I can at most be considered a helper. Qin Ping said angrily, you are showing loyalty. Gukin laughed and said, I'm used to selling him. Qin Pingon is used to it. Gukin said, Pei Qian is also here and he is at the Qinghuang Temple in the capital right now. Before Qin Pingon could say anything, Gukin said first, it's what Lu Xianying meant. Seeing that Qin Pingon still wanted to talk, Gukin was most familiar with his temperament, and immediately asked a key question with his heart. What crime did they suffer in the Ma Mansion? Mess, if I don't find them a few bottles of panacea. Calm down quickly, the sequelae will be too great. Gukin is a bystander and his realm and master's biography are all there. On the other hand, Pu Lu and the insiders are not clear about his current precarious situation. Qin Pingon roughly explained, except for the fact that ghosts are relatively better, the other 2 are not so fuel efficient. I helped them tailor several small methods, setting up a thunderstorm, giving fire torture and the martial arts. Discipline. A lot of them pass by and don't miss them, and a lot of them are fined if they bump into each other. Gukin couldn't help laughing and gloated, "It's fine for Shen Ku to make it through. After all, he is a warrior. What about Pu Lu and Guan Yu? Even if the old woman has no chance to become Yupu, the problem is that even if she has a great opportunity now, she dares to retreat, dare to break through, dare to face the inner demons?" Qin Pingon said, "In the future, as long as they hope to retreat and break through the realm, I will help them with a letter from you. To wipe out all their memories just like they have never seen me, and it will not hurt their fundamentals. Just erase the memory." Gukin remained silent with complicated eyes. Qin Ping laughed at himself. "Compare me with Mr. Zheng? Can you compare? You think so highly of a cultivator in the immortal realm, and insult a 14th realm mentor who wants to establish a religion and be called his ancestor?" Gukin didn't feel much about the words, establishing a religion and calling the ancestors, as if he had expected it long ago. Hearing these words, his Dao heart was not disturbed. Instead, he was concerned about the 3 words, immortal land. Qin Ping stretched out his hands to hold Gukan's head. "I am both a fairy and a suzerain. Lu Xianying is still a suzerain, and you are the only one who is not a fart. You only have the Jade Realm next to you. What the hell?" Gukin was speechless. Qin Ping said with a smile, "This is what I call a joke, a joke." After entering the house, the old women looked around. There was nothing to see in the palm-sized land. They were very surprised. This is where Qin Jianxian stayed in the capital? Would it be too shabby? It's just that they thought about it again and they quickly felt relieved. How can the great sword Immortal act according to common sense? Qin Ping said with a smile. Diligence is a cash cow and frugality is a cornucopia. The hall is simple, mainly an 8 Immortals table. Qin Pingon greeted everyone to sit down and said, "The rented place, the hospitality is not good and tea is used instead of wine." Sensing Gukan's gaze, Gu Lingying immediately went to boil water. There were no outsiders in the house. Qin Pingon asked, "Have you figured out the address?" Gukan said, "Let's choose Fuyao Island. There's a place. I have inspected it myself before and it's okay. But I plan to go to Fuyao Island again to take a look. Maybe there is a better place. Son, the specific location I can't say right now." Qin Pingon nodded and said, "As long as Fuyazu is settled, there is no need to worry too much. Take your time." Gukan said, "There may not be a ceremony." Qin Ping smiled and said, "Even if there is a ceremony, I may not go if you invite me." Gukan said, "I know you are busy, so I only go to Qingxing country, not Fuyao Island. Except for Gu Lingyu who knows everything, the rest of them are all human beings," and they immediately chewed out the aftertaste. Is this a challenge? What is the relationship between them? He became more and more curious about the identity of the Confucian shirt youth, who, talking to Qin Jianxian, can be so casual. Qin Pingon said, "Make up for the mistakes," and said, "Since I chose Fuyazu, I will introduce someone to you in the future." Gukan said, "If it's someone who came out of the summer palace, then it's avoided. It's doomed not to urinate in a pot." Qin Ping said with a smile, "This person is known as the smartest emperor in the history of Fuyao continent. I always feel that this guy is somewhere in his hometown hiding his family fortune." Because Gukan stayed in Fuyazu for a while, she immediately guessed the other party's identity and tentatively asked, "Is it the one who defends his son better than outsiders?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "That's him. Now that I'm living with Zhong Kue, sooner or later I'll be free again. You two probably have the right temper." Gukan smiled and said, "If it's him, if he wants to be the chief priest, I'll give it to him." Qin Pingon said, "We'll talk about it when you guys meet, let's see if you hit it off." Gukan laughed and said, "If you beat him to death he won't go to Luapa Mountain, but if you kill him he will be willing to hang out with me." Qin Pingon laughed and said, "Are you quite proud? Showing off to me?" Gukan was overjoyed. Qin Ping let out a long breath. If there was a chair to sit on he would want to sleep on it. Gukan remembered something and asked, "Do you know that there is a Chongyang temple here?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "In ancient times it was called Alchemy. It is a geomantic treasure land where Dao Qi is condensed. I passed by it a few times but I didn't go in to investigate it. Just by looking at Qi I can roughly tell that it is a Taoist priest who is proficient in fire. Building a furnace to refine water pills is probably a strange person who dares to refine golden pills both inside and outside. I guess the realm of the master may not be very high, but the power of the outer pill is not shallow. Why have we met? The few people I met in Tianshui Hutong just now seem to be going to Chongyang Temple to seek immortality. There are many legal traditions of Taoism, only the Weidan school and the inner alchemy school. At the first level of the Jindan realm there is a watershed. Under the Jindan the Weidan gains power. Seeking external objects to strengthen oneself often leads to rapid breakthrough. On top of the golden elixir, although the outer elixir will not become tasteless, it is not that important, but there are exceptions. On the other side of the Qingming world, the outer elixir also has a few dharma veins which can be directed to Feisheng. On the other side of Tongya Island, Lu Yong's Qinghu Palace belongs to the typical Taoist Weidan lineage. Gukin said, I just met and chatted casually. The master inside seems to be a Jindan Earth Immortal. He is quite courageous and dares to call himself the Daoist Huelu. Qin Ping laughed it off. Gu Lingying said softly, it's not Qingming Tianxia. The Taoist name is unique and cannot be taken without authorization. The only one is as precious as the road to the Tao. On Haoran Tianxia, besides the genealogy monks, the Taoist name is also it's not just taken casually. Qin Pingon nodded. Gukin stopped talking about this matter and changed the subject and asked, do you want me to go to Jinwu Mountain with the 3 mountain talisman and call Lu Xianyang over? Qin Pingon nodded and said, then you go and come back quickly, I will be lazy and wait for you here. Lu Xianyang once knocked over Lu Chen's fortune-telling booth, and clamored to hit him once. In the past he didn't know the identity of the Lotus Crown Taoist priest, so he didn't hesitate, but now even if he knew it was Lu Chen, Lu Xianyang still didn't hesitate at all. After Gukin left, Qin Ping took out a talisman from his sleeve, turned it into a streak of color and quickly swept out of the house. When the talisman fell to the ground, it was Wu Di, a middle-aged Taoist who was already in Chongyang Temple. Outside the wall. The main reason was that Gukin was inadvertently involved in some kind of cause and effect. Qin Pingon needed to find out and see it with his own eyes before he could rest assured. What's more, when he met those people from the mountain foot, in that Tianshui alley, Qin Pingon felt that the matter was big or small. According to his habit he still wanted to believe what he saw. Gu Lingyu just pretended not to know the reason. There are no rules in the wild hometown, but there is no lack of pride. Because of the lack of calculations, the kind of life and death friendship may be more than that of Haoran. But it was the first time she saw a relationship like Gu Kan and Qin Pingon. The old woman and the Ma family members are still speculating about the identity of the young man in Confucianism. Although he was arranged to go somewhere, most of the time he would follow that young man for dinner, but as long as he didn't follow Mr. Qin to Luapa Mountain he would be fine. Before leaving, Gukin glanced at Huang Lai. You've whacked me twice on someone while I was around. When I'm not around, if you still dare to act like this, accepting you as an enshrinement on the same day and then cleaning up the door on the same day, this kind of thing cannot be done by others, but I, Gukin, can do it very casually. Huang Lai seemed guilty and hurriedly nodded his head. Don't worry, there will never be another chance for Gu Zongzhu to misunderstand. Inside Chongyang Temple the scenery is quiet. In the setting sun the rosy ochre water forms a paper, the pattern is like runes, and the fish in the pond are like being in a Taoist book, eating immortal characters. There is a lone bird rushing to the waves, fleeting. An old Taoist priest with a long beard came up. Qing Fengxian, who was the owner of this place, noticed something strange in the temple. The old Taoist stepped on the square step, extremely majestic. What I saw in my eyes was a middle-aged Taoist priest enjoying the scenery by the water. I don't know whether it is a colleague or a fellow. The old Taoist was not sure about the other party's intentions for a while. If he said that the temple is closed all year round in this capital, there are not many friends who visit, and there are no good men and women who come here to burn incense. So the other party either came over the wall uninvited or a man of the right way with real magical powers, able to shrink the earth's veins, thousands of miles of mountains and rivers just like now. Qing Fengxian sized it up, had a guess and asked with a smile. But Daoist Wu who set up a stall in Higher Lane, Yongjia County, Wuxia? Just based on the other party's attire, it is impossible to tell which line of law on the mountain belongs to. Qin Pingon nodded with a smile and said straight to the point. Wu Di, the poor Taoist priest, has no Taoist name. Just now I heard from a friend that Guanju Cheng's Taoist name is Huelu. The poor Taoist has lived here for many days and passed by Guiguan several times. I didn't dare to bother, so I didn't go to the door, and today I heard that my friend mentioned Qingzhenren, and his words were mostly admiration for the temple master, for fear of missing a senior who has attained the Tao, so the poor Taoist dared to come here to talk about it. Qing Fengxian stroked his beard and smiled and said narrowly, How can the self-appointed Taoist name be taken seriously? Fellow Taoist Wu, don't be frightened, or treat the poor Taoist as a villain and plan to ask the county government for rewards? Qin Pingon said, the Lord is joking. Qing Fengxian didn't bother to go around with this person. He was not afraid of the swaying shadow, and the good time was limited after all. He shouldn't be wasting in this kind of hypocrisy, so he said directly, Ming people don't talk dark words. Dare to ask fellow Daoist Wu to come here to explore the scenery, or should we study Taoism and weigh the poor Taoism? If it is said that colleagues are enemies, but he lives in seclusion in this Chongyang temple, concentrates on alchemy, takes 2 apprentices and has nothing to do with the world. With this fellow Daoist who set up a stall to make money, well, water doesn't violate river water, there is no reason to cross. Qin Pingon smiled and said, may I ask you, is Qing Guanzi's ancestor from the Loguan sect? Qing Fengxian was silent for a moment, then heaved a long sigh, showing a little sentimental expression. I never thought that fellow Daoist Wu would know such ancient things. To tell you the truth, the poverty Dao is indeed from a side branch of the Loguan sect, but it is not orthodox. The same source is different. The source of water has long been exhausted. The branch of Pin Dao is now in such a bleak situation. In ancient times, real people came out in large numbers. At that time, among the Taoists in the world, there was a saying that the Loguan school was the highest and the Donghua school was the largest. As for the Taoist legal system of the Luguan sect, apart from being good at astronomy and divination, they are also very good at alchemy. Otherwise, it will not be able to stand up to the highest. After Qin Ping confirmed that the other party's words were true, he felt a little helpless. It turned out that this hidden thread, which was like a fish lying on the ground, was not in Gu Kan but in himself. The old Taoist master of Donghai Taoist Temple, the master of Bixiao Cave, he secretly took care of the Tonggis Hao Jinding Temple of the Loguan school, and even asked Luopashan and Jiang Shangzhen not to do anything to Xiao Yuanran by name. The old temple master gifted a quarter of the Ohua blessed land in Luoba Mountain to repay the debt? Need to repay a sum of interest in this Chongyang temple first? I don't know the previous 3 people going back up, who would not be involved in a certain old patriarch of the Loguan sect. Qin Pingon thought for a moment and began to talk nonsense in a serious manner. Since Master Jing is willing to treat people with sincerity, it's not good for the poor Daoist to play tricks. Yizhou, by chance in a certain place in the north, there is a lot of affinity with the legal system handed down by a certain ancestor of the Loguan school. Just like planting, the flowers should bloom here and the melon will fall. Qing Fengxian let out a bit of doubt, apparently half believing and not daring to believe it all. Is there really such a good thing that fell from the sky? Qin Pingon continued, Pin Dao is in the capital of Yushuan Kingdom. Things are over and I will continue to travel to other places soon. There is a ghost house that is rumored to be in the Zhugan Hutong of Yongjia County. Grass, when the master goes there he can tell when he sees it. The owner of the house is Shui Rui. Although she looks like a ghost, she is devoted to Taoism and has a clear spirit. Pin Dao has lived here for several months. Has a very close relationship with her and they call each other Taoist friends. She has a personal friendship with Tong Shanjun, the god named Dezhu, and it is because of her that Pin Dao was lucky to meet Tong Shanjun in the house. Apart from alchemy, you can take the time to talk about it and say that you and Wu Di are old friends on the road. Qing Fengxian pretended to be calm and he was amazed in his heart. The fellow Taoist in front of him is deeply blessed, and he was able to have a relationship with that Tong Shanjun. This kind of thing, especially in the Xishan area, dare not talk nonsense and put gold on your face, otherwise you are really not afraid of being struck by lightning? In fact, Qing Fengxian was more surprised than frightened. Just because his most important potion of medicine was originally scheduled to be smelted at the noon of this year's Dragon Boat Festival. As long as the medicine is successful, no more no less, there are only 2 pills, one is indispensable and more is even worse, the 2 pills just divide yin and yang. But the old Taoist is not sure about this, just because he lacks one of the most important medicinal materials. Even though he has exhausted his mind, he chose the site of Chongyang Temple as a cauldron, and found a pair of noon couplets as a way to suppress the victory. However, there is still a lack of vital alchemy items, which caused the alchemy furnace to light a fire but could not achieve the kind of running water described in the alchemy book. If you can burn a fairy wormwood, it is like a fire in a steamer, smoked and moxibustion transported to Guanyi, which has been condensed for many years. Isn't it? Heaven is beautiful. The reason why the old Taoist didn't look happy is because he didn't know the grade of the wormwood at the gate of the ghost house for the time being. How big is the firepower after burning? The old Taoist became more and more suspicious. Met this Taoist Wu Di today, could it be due to a mysterious Taoist fate? If you really complied with the other party's words, it should blossom and bear fruit, and the fruit will come to fruition? And Qin Pingan's original intention was to help the temple master and Shui Rui match up first, so that the two parties could take care of each other and form a good relationship. In the future, if there are any difficulties in Chongyang Temple, Shui Rui or Tong Wenchong, Qin Pingan will come to weigh whether or not to help and how to help. Qin Pingan was also quite surprised and asked seemingly casually, Pindao once saw a poor young man from a foreign country named Bai Yun. He and his grandfather once sold pictures of spring cows. When they passed by the stall, Pindao helped him make a divination. I wonder if Master Jing has ever seen this young man who has the method of fate on the mountain? Qing Fengxian shook his head. Pindao doesn't stay at home, so I've never seen this young man before. It's just that the old Taoist quickly added, the two apprentices of poor Dao who occasionally go shopping in the market may have seen this person. Qin Pingan looked as usual and said with a smile, the poor Taoist thought that this fate of the immortal family would fall on Qing Guanzhu and Chongyang Guan, but now it seems that it may not be. This is the benefit of a high realm, and the secret words in the hearts of others resound like thunder. The wormwood tree hanging at the door was given to Shui Rui by Lu Qin before, lest Qin Ping's fight with Ma Kushuan would make too much noise and accidentally hurt her ghost soul. And Lu Qin came to Howren this time, and he was busy with the business, looking for the noon fish, which was difficult to catch for gods, that is, the later young Ningji and now Qin Ping's direct disciple. Could it be that according to the original context, Ningji, who was not found by Lu Qin and Qin Pingan, would enter this Chongyang temple, and the young man would be favored by Qing Fengxian, worship him as a teacher step by step and finally embark on the road of Taoism? Qin Pingan couldn't help laughing. Does this mean that he cut off the barbarian halfway and robbed the opponent's favorite disciple? Lu Qin has already reached this level, and he wants to use the wormwood tree as compensation to indirectly help the old Taoist consummate alchemy? Settle a cause and effect? It seems that the next time I visit Middle-earth Divine Continent besides Longhush and Tianshi Mansion, if I have a chance, I will go to Middle-earth Lu family to borrow books to read. Qin Ping smiled and said, it won't hinder the viewer's hospitality. The old Taoist asked doubtfully, why do fellow Taoists say this? People of the Taoist sect are most particular about a receiving spirit, and will not easily disperse their spiritual consciousness. According to legend, only the kind of Taoist gods who have stepped into the realm of heaven and man cannot move their gods, but they are able to perceive things outside the body. The slightest change between heaven and earth. At this time, a tall but sallow young Taoist boy ran quickly to the water's edge, slapped his head and said out of breath, Master Jing, there is another guest at the door. Qing Fengxian smiled and praised, fellow Daoist Wu is really a prophet. Probably because he noticed the playful eyes of this worldly master Wu Daocheng, the old Taoist felt a little ashamed. The food in his Taoist temple was really not enough oil and water on weekdays. Old Taoist priests like to be clean, and alchemy is most afraid of the intrusion of the red dust. Taoist temples are closed all year round to thank visitors. They can't steal or rob, and they don't want to be cheated. What a blessing. These two apprentices, although they have ordinary aptitudes and are not considered geniuses, since Qing Fengxian accepted them as registered disciples, besides following his own fate, he still placed high hopes on them, not just the lack of Taoism. Cleaning up the chores is so simple. The old Taoists still hope that they can revive the master's school with their own strength in the future. But the people who cultivate the Tao in the mountains, the method of refining the outer alchemy and taking food has always been passed down from teacher to teacher, so they choose apprentices. Preaching and teaching skills are extremely strict and secretive, and some Dao lines even have ancestral precepts that must be passed on in a single line. Lead and mercury are burned in a cauldron to be smelted into priceless pearls. As long as a golden elixir is cultivated, ordinary people can prolong their lives if they take it, and immortal masters can live long and see forever after taking it and stay in the world forever. So that pot of pills was really made. Exactly. Two Song Juchuan and Zhou Xian were lucky to have one in hand. As for Qing Fengxian himself, he had already formed a golden pill inside, so he didn't need external things to increase his Taoism. That Wu Di seemed to see the embarrassment of the old Taoist and Zhou Xian's restraint, and smiled lightly. Living in poverty, we are kind and honest, that's why we Taoists call ourselves poor. The old Taoist stroked his beard and smiled, which made sense. Zhou Xian was eye-opening when he heard it. It turns out that there is a reason for our Taoist priests to be poor? Daoist Wu looked at the tall and thin Daoist boy and said with a smile, "The world has money and no money in gold and silver, but my generation has Dao and Dao, but it is in my heart. It is not easy to enter the mountains, but it is even more difficult to cultivate Dao. It is nothing to suffer a little, and the sky will send great tasks to people. Will inevitably exhaust his muscles and bones, starve his body and empty his body. This is the meaning of the problem of cultivating the Tao. Do not go into the treasure mountain and return empty-handed. You must remember to have no distracting thoughts, be devout to the Tao, and do not complain about the sky and others and make your body and mind hesitant. Believe that your own opportunity is waiting for you." After all, Zhou Xian was no more eloquent than senior brother Song, and he was not good at words. He just slapped his head in a polite manner, and sincerely thanked the strange Taoist priest for his words and teachings. Qin Pingon reached out and patted the young man's shoulder and said with a smile, "Cultivating the Tao is hard work. Let's keep working hard." Qing Fengxian originally wanted to take this Daoist Wu to his alchemy place to have a look, but unexpectedly the other party directly said, "The weight of the tripod is unquestionable." When the old Taoist heard this, he was speechless for a moment. Is there any similarity between the saying of "fisherman's respect" and the previous sentence of the Confucian shirt youth? Qin Pingon said politely to the Master Jing viewer, "Purity and asceticism, no competition with things, true spirit." Then he took his leave and left, and the smiling old temple master didn't keep him, but secretly made up his mind to go to that ghost house, to try his luck and see how the wormwood looks. On the way, Qin Pingon just passed by those people again. Taoist Wu Dis square steps are no worse than that of the old temple master. Seeing the old Taoist with immortal demeanor, after confirming his identity, the short man took out a secret letter handwritten by the master, bowed his head and presented it with both hands. "Blessings from the Yao family. By the order of the master, bring the treasure tree. Hong Tu came here to see Qing Jinren." Qing Fengxian took the letter, opened it on the spot, read the content, looked up at the young woman named Bao Shu. The old Taoist nodded and said, "It is indeed a material that can be made, and she will stay in the temple to practice with the poor. 3 to 5 years is fine. People are in good spirits on happy occasions, and the old Taoist is in a good mood. In fact, it is said that it is an offshoot of the Loguan school, and it is correct. It is similar to a villager who said that his surname was an emperor hundreds of years ago. It's just that in the dark he felt that the opportunity for the success of the alchemy this time was really on the so-called wormwood plant that Wu Daochang called. Young and ignorant, he once uttered wild words. Whoever is as idle as Lao Tzu is originally a fairy, and he refuses to be a fairy. Now that he has a small success in cultivating the Tao, he is hopeful that he will succeed in alchemy. Whoever is as crazy as a poor Taoist has already succeeded in alchemy and refuses to accept the golden elixir. Qing Fengxian asked his apprentice Song Juchuan, who was more active in thinking, to lead the three of them to live in Guanyi. Back then, when he traveled from Central Earth to Aquarius Island, the old Taoist traveled all the way from north to south, stopped during the period and chatted with the current head of Yao Family Mountain, and they hit it off. In the history of Yaojia Mountain, there was a founding master of Jindan sword Immortal. But after the establishment of the sect, each generation is not as good as the previous generation. The current master Yao Guizhen is just a chi practitioner in the cave, let alone a sword cultivator. Now it is hard to find a good material and beautiful jade. It is estimated that Yao Guizhen thinks it is difficult to transcribe the Dharma, and he is worried that it will delay the girl's future as a monk. So she has the idea that other stones can be used to make jade? Hao Pindao also has this idea of adult beauty. Just think of it as a good relationship with Yeajiashan on the way of practice. In the future, when Song Juchuan and Zhou Xian leave their teachers, they will also have a place to stay on the way out for training. Here in the capital of Yushuan Kingdom, there is a Taoist temple with a very small appearance but a unique cave. It was once called Alchemy Temple, but it was renamed Chongyang Temple. If the master of the temple this year and the people of the temple in the old days are contemplating and cultivating the Tao together, how can we distinguish who is the master and who is the guest? Zhou Xian went for a walk with his master and recalled something, summoned up his courage and whispered, "Master Jing, I know a friend who came from a poor background and was a foreigner. He fled to the capital and lived with his grandfather. He knows medicinal materials and can draw spring cows. 2. He knows how to work as a bricklayer and he can endure hardships, so I want to discuss with Master, Can he come to our Taoist temple to do odd jobs and become a resident Taoist? The old Taoist asked casually, "What is your friend's name?" Zhou Xian said, "Baiyun." The old Taoist thought for a while and came up with an idea, but he said, "Zhou Xian, what do you think of our Taoist food?" Zhou Xian said honestly, "It's not bad. There is really not much oil and water and it is always a full meal. As for Brother Song's private grievances, I won't tell the master, lest the master who is more vengeful will hold on to him. When the master scolds the brother will turn around and beat me. The loss is not mine." The old Taoist stroked his beard and said with a smile, "As long as your friend named Baiyun comes to us to do odd jobs and doesn't charge wages, I guarantee that he will have enough food for 3 meals a day. If he agrees, he will come here to help and he will be a part-time worker first. Master observes him for a few more days. If he is really simple and honest, it will not be difficult for him to become a resident Taoist priest. But if he thinks he can't make money and doesn't want us to worship in Chongyang, then forget it." Zhou Xian wrote it down silently with a happy expression on his face. It is estimated that his Taoist temple is old and needs to be repaired everywhere. The reason that Brother Song figured out for himself the phrase, "know how to do some bricklayer work," has made great contributions and convinced the master. Thousands of atmospheres turn back to the place, and the immortals from ancient times created this pavilion. There is a huge stone outside the pavilion, the top of which is cut into a platform by a sharp weapon. Sitting on the stone platform was a burly middle-aged Taoist, with a bearded face and suet-like luster on his skin. He seemed to be exhaling breath, with 2 white smoke hanging from his nose, like a white snake hanging on the wall. Water around him. It was foggy, and when the Taoist suddenly opened his eyes shone brightly, which was quite frightening. The burly Taoist spread out his palms, looked at the lines, discerned the mountains by inch and looked at the 4 seas. Since he is a person who can watch the mountains and rivers in his palm, the key is that he can also look at the breath at the same time. Numerology is in the dark, personnel and affairs are new as old, long-term doubts are not everywhere. One by one seems to have been. There is a pair of teenagers and girls sitting upright in the pavilion. Both of them are so beautiful that they forget the customs. The handsome young man with long beard and bangs, with a face like a crown jade, sword eyebrows and star eyes, with a long sword across his knees at this moment, can be included in the book as a talented scholar or a young knight-errant. There is a young girl next to her, who is so beautiful that she is so beautiful that people are at a loss for words. They are not surprised to see this scene. This master, who has just known for less than a year, once learned the lock-nose technique from an unknown ancient stranger. It's just that they have all kowtowed and learned art from their masters, but they still don't know their master's name or their sect. Is this a strange rule unique to the gods on the mountain? Moreover, the master only said that he was following the order of his master and he was going to Huzhou, northwest of Dali, to save a person with natural immortal roots, and bring him back to the mountains so that he would be able to honor the sect in the future. As an acceptance ceremony, the Taoist once gave them a gift, 1 long and 1 short 2 swords. He took off the long sword and presented it to the young disciples. The length is about 3 feet and 4 inches. The sword pouch is old, colorful and beautifully carved, but the master did not tell the name of the sword, only said that it is a famous ancient sword, which was forged by a real person from a land in a big mountain. Bending and stretching, you only need to wrap it around your waist when not in use. It used to be a sharp weapon for self-defense when Taoists climbed mountains and refined qi. No matter how ignorant the young man is, he knows that it is a treasure. Usually he only needs to pull this long sword out of the sword pouch 2 feet, and he will feel that it is shining brightly and the sword energy is strong. The middle-aged Taoist gave the young apprentice a short sword again, but never said its origin. I just told them to get close to the sword on weekdays, and to cultivate the sword energy with their own Taoism. Naturally, the 2 of them couldn't understand what Dao Qi and Sword Qi were, but they just figured out a reason, thinking that it was the same as that person's principle of raising jade and jade raising people. That's why girls use daggers as pillows every night when they fall asleep. After the Taoist opened his eyes and spread his palms, he glanced down and frowned slightly, but he quickly recovered his calm Taoism and closed his eyes again. The girl whispered, "Senior brother, master himself just refines qi day and night without resting for a moment. Master can fasten grains instead of eating whole grains. We are in this Taoist temple, but we have to climb over the wall and go in and out like thieves. Why don't you go directly to Nazhou to find someone?" The young man looked indifferent, shook his head and said, How can I guess what master thinks? The two sides have learned martial arts and practiced qi for less than a year, and their light body kung fu has reached the level of proficiency, jumping between the walls and walls as fast as apes, and castrating in the mountains and forests faster than birds. It's just that they still haven't practiced swordsmanship and their master has never taught them, so there is nothing they can do. As for the three masters and apprentices in the Taoist temple, it is indeed a strange thing that they do not know their existence until now. A woman in a green dress appeared out of thin air and came slowly. She stepped into the gazebo and said yen yen with a smile, "You are the two disciples that senior brother Lu just accepted. Which one is Fengqing and which one is Jingding?" Ignoring their posture as if facing a formidable enemy, the woman introduced herself. "My surname is Shao. In terms of seniority, I am your uncle. I will not mention the name for now. Our school has very strict rules." They stood up and saluted this Uncle Shao who popped out of nowhere. Junqing are all fairy seedlings, so they should cherish and love themselves. The woman in the green skirt stretched out her hand and pressed them twice, so that they don't have to be restrained, and said with a smile, "Cultivate well, the road can be expected." While chatting with the two children, she said to the burly Taoist priest with her heart, "Senior brother Lu, why did it become so lively all of a sudden? In one day 3 groups of guests came?" The Taoist replied in secret words, "There is no reason not to get together." The woman in the green skirt said, "Gu Ken and Baidi City, the maid Gu Lingyu and the national teacher Huang Lai, how did they get together?" "I just got a spy report from the main hall. A wild female cultivator, her Taoist name is." As for the number of her cultivation path, how did she follow Gu Ken from the wild to the Howren world? Even the main hall is not clear. Check senior brother Lu, do you think it's strange? The burly Taoist said, "The really important news is not Gu Kan and Mrs. Wu, but the Taoist Wu Di who just left here." The eyes of the woman in the green dress lit up. "Is there something to talk about? Can it be more important than Gu Kan and?" The Taoist said, "This person's true identity is one of the talisman avatars of Lord Qin Shan of Luoba Mountain." The woman in the green skirt asked, "Is he going to avenge Mrs. Ma?" The burly Taoist said, "The revenge is over. The previous vision in the sky is the proof of Ma Kexuan's death." The woman in the green dress wondered, "How did you recognize it?" As for Ma Kexuan's demise, she was not too surprised. She just couldn't believe it before. Ma Kexuan really died like this. This news is too unbelievable. You must know that many people outside are very optimistic about Ma Kexuan's ascension within 100 years. She doesn't care, it's none of her business, and hangs up high what to do with so many other things. The Taoist said, "Gu Kan leaves with his front foot and Wu Di arrives with his back foot. Is it hard to guess?" The woman in the green dress had a strange expression and she was a little worried. "I just said why I lost the aura of Gong Sun Girl out of thin air. Could it be him? A certain book of landscape travel notes that sold very well and was banned. I don't know how many spectators have been deceived. What kind of sympathy for Qin Ping, that Qin Shanju has been a ruthless master since he was young." The Taoist said, "This kind of abandoned disciple with a weak heart, don't you still want to help her return to the teacher?" The woman in the green skirt sighed faintly, unwilling to entangle senior brother Lu on this topic. Although they are referred to as brothers and sisters, they are always from the same family and have different bloodlines. Thinking of the business, she asked in her heart, "Uncle Qing still can't open his mind and remember the past? The main hall has asked about this matter, how should I reply?" The middle-aged Taoist nodded and said, "Uncle Qing practiced very smoothly in his previous life, and his blessings were profound. This life has become a burden and it is even more difficult to get enlightened. If you return to the main hall at least for 200 years, you don't have to expect Uncle Qing to return to the mountain." She sighed and rubbed the space between her brows. In his previous life, Uncle Qing at this age was in the Ascension realm. This body is now the Jindan Dixian, so he is so complacent. An expert once made a very vivid analogy. Uncle Qing is a cornucopia of prosperity that he does not ask for wealth and luck. Zhongti Yushuan Ai Zuweishi, Beipingzu He Xiaoyang, Tongis Hao Huang Ting are all such people. Then she was a little worried. Will Mr. Cheng's roots be broken by that Gu Kan? She was unwilling to have any entanglements with Baidi City. In fact, it wasn't her, it was anyone. The burly Taoist shook his head and said, "No matter how talented Gu Kan is, I don't have the vision yet." She pressed on and asked, "Gu Kan can't see it, what about that person?" Uncle Qing is also true. He proclaimed himself the Taoist name Hui Lu, and it is easy to make suspicious people. The Taoist thought for a while. Master Qing has a good fortune and strong Dao Qi. Even if he is in a daze, he can isolate the secrets by himself, just like the protection of the fist of a martial arts master. Each has divine help. Qin Shanzhu has just set foot in Wang Qi, so he should not recognize it. Out. She breathed a sigh of relief and said tentatively, "That girl Baoshu is really talented, why don't you give it to the younger sister?" Baoshu is the nickname of a woman from Nahu and her full name is Yuan Chaoxian. In the secret book of the main hall, the evaluation is excellent. It is the natural talent that all three divisions of the school want to compete for. Seeing that the senior brother was unwilling to talk to her at all, the woman in the green skirt continued to persuade, "You have accepted Feng Qing and Jing Ding as apprentices, so you must let the junior sister get a little bit of credit. I have been busy in Luzhou Beiju these years. There is hard work without merit. It's time to accept a promising apprentice. Let the beauty be credited, this gentleman's business." The burly Taoist said calmly, "Unfortunately, I am a swordsman and Taoist." The woman in the green skirt was dumbfounded. He suggested, "You can take advantage of Uncle Cheng's memory of his previous life, and ask him to ask Song Juchuan or Zhou Xian to be your disciple." The woman in the green dress laughed angrily when she heard the words. "Ask senior brother Lu, when will we be able to accept male disciples from our lineage?" It turns out that her lineage has always abided by the ancestral precepts, passing on from daughter to son. Otherwise she really wouldn't mind asking Qing Fengxian for an apprentice. It should be known that there were gods in Zhongshan in ancient times, whose Taoist name was Zhuyin, and they were not under the jurisdiction of the Confucian temple. According to legend, the Taoist temple formed its own heaven and earth. Later he was beheaded by his close friend Xianxia, praying for the solution of the soldiers and transformation, and turning into a human body in the next life. At that time, the person who handed him the sword to help him escape was none other than Pei Min, one of Howren's three masters of swordsmanship. She suddenly asked, "Why did Uncle Qing come to Aquarius continent to make alchemy?" The Taoist priest seemed to say perfunctorily, "There is God's will in the dark." There was a moment of silence. The woman in the green skirt was in a depressed mood. "He is the only one I miss." She was a little moody. She thought highly of him enough, but she still underestimated him. If you hadn't misjudged and met him in Beiju Luzhou, the world might not be the way it is today. The Taoist smiled a little and said, "Besides, what you call high opinion junior sister Xiao doesn't seem to be very high. Is it just a martial artist who travels far away? And I'm sure that he can only have it in his life. 2 flying swords on the 1st and 15th day of the new year?" The woman in the green skirt avoided the serious and took the light. With a helpless look on her face she said, "Warrior of the 8 realms, is it Chinese cabbage?" The Taoist asked, "Is there any other news from the main hall?" The woman in the green skirt nodded and said, "A certain person came back here from the colorful world. Someone once saw her sword light like a rainbow traveling across the sea. Looking at her direction, she's going to Fuyazu." Although he only said someone, the Taoist knew it well. The Taoist seemed to have realized something and turned to look at her. She nodded. That Ning Yao probably broke through again and again. Even if his Taoist heart is as firm as a burly Taoist priest, when he heard about this, he would inevitably look in a trance for a moment and said softly, "It's terrible." She nodded and said, "It's unreasonable to break the realm like this. It's only been a few years since she left the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Yuanying broke through the realm to Yupu, beheaded ancient gods, immortals, and defeated Daozu in a battle of swords. The closed-door disciple has no power to fight back, soars up and now." With a heavy sigh, she said helplessly, "I really can't go on. People are more angry than others and it just makes others feel disheartened." She then smiled and said, "I have become the #1 person in the world, and across the world I still come and leave whenever I want. It's really free." The burly Taoist stood up suddenly, and this time he became taller and taller. He was actually a head taller than the man in the north of Aquarius Island. The uninvited guest, still invisible, just smiled and did not hide his sarcasm. The 2 seniors have such a high realm and their identities are still very unusual, so they like to talk about my family affairs so much. The woman in the green skirt followed senior brother Liu's line of sight and looked at one place. After ripples, the visitor finally appeared. The man was dressed in green and had a sword on his back. He had a slender figure and his white hair on the sideburns had turned green again, probably because of entering the fairyland. But his expression was sluggish, probably it was the fight with Ma Kuxuan and it was not easy to win. She couldn't help but asked curiously, "When did Qin Shanzhu come here?" Qin Ping asked with a smile. "I'm also curious, when did the two seniors come to Aquarius Island?" The woman in the green skirt frowned and said nothing. "Come here to ask questions? This person's current real state? The price for him and Lu Qin to temporarily borrow the realm is to fall back from Yupu to nascent soul." The Taoist explained her confusion with his heartfelt voice. Before Taoist Wu Di left the Taoist temple, he patted Zhou Xian on the shoulder, and he noticed the unusualness of Zhou Xian's roots. It seems that he didn't intend to, but he had intentions. As for when he sneaked into this place, I don't know either. The woman in the green skirt became more and more puzzled. "You are a fairy, you don't even know? Their business is either killing or being killed. They are most proficient in lurking and sneak attack. How could Qin Pingon notice this place?" The Taoist said, "It may be your arrival that leaked your whereabouts." The woman in the green skirt laughed angrily. The burly Taoist said, "My name is Lu Taoji and I am the helmsman of the Xishan Jianin lineage. In Tongyi's Hao, Mr. Qin has already met Qin Bai. She is the former leader of the Cherry Tsing-yi lineage. After she resigned, her position has been vacant for a long time. This Liangting is Qin Bai's junior sister named Xiao Pu. We don't even have a Taoist name in our sect. Even if we don't belong to the same line, we are mostly called according to seniority. Xiao Pu's appearance is just that of a man, his skin is yellowish, but he has an awe-inspiring and inviolable austere demeanor. She put a wooden hairpin on her head, wore cotton clothes, stepped on a pair of cloth shoes and said with a smile, "If you imitate the flying ducks, you will be ashamed of the swordsman." Qin Pingon was indifferent. Although the boys and girls in the gazebo couldn't hear the words of the three of them, they were all very curious about the identity and origin of the blue-clothed swordsman. Feng Qing, a young man with a horizontal sword on his knee, looked on coldly at the uninvited guest. The young girl was Jing Ding, but she couldn't take her eyes off it, as if she had seen some exaggerated scene. Her face was full of amazement and novelty. Xiao Pu said, "I was fortunate enough to be in Beiju Luzhou, and I saw Qin Shanzhu fighting with those Beiyan cavalrymen and Cutlashan assassins from afar." Qin Pingon said, "Not long ago the wild monks outside Tua Mountain had seen that fight from a distance, and they probably felt the same way." Xiao Pu didn't seem to hear the yin and yang strangeness in the words of the young sword fairy, and continued to say, "Back then Qin Shanzhu's realm was not high, but his spiritual awareness was extraordinary. At that time Qin Pingon was traveling with Sui Jingqing. On horseback he really felt a little weird without any clues, just an intuition about the crisis." Qin Pingon remained silent. It takes effort to speak. Lu Taoji seemed to feel that it was inappropriate for him to condescend to talk to this Lord Qinshan, and because of the inappropriate etiquette he dropped the boulder. Both the person who cleans up the wrong and the person who credits the knife are extremely mysterious. Moreover, compared with the latter, the cleanser is more treacherous and unknown to the world. Just like the assassin praised by Yes poems, he has truly achieved 10 steps and 1 kill without leaving anyone behind. So much so that even Liang Shuang, who is a great celestial master outside Longhu Mountain, and Lao Zhenren, a great monk on the top of the mountain, have to ask Zhao Tianlai to know some inside stories. For example, the 3 veins of cleansing injustices are Xishan Jianin, who is a swordsman, and Cherry Tsing-yi, who is almost all female assassins, and the last group of generals who occupy high positions and important temples in the countries of Howren 8 continents. The Bowl Saw Man, also known as the Tinker. It is true that Yu Qing is not simple. Before that, Qin Ping only knew that the real surname of the cook lady Yu Qing in the Ma mansion was Gong Sun, who was a cleanser, but he was not from the Xishan Jianin lineage. Because of breaking the law, she was expelled from the list and lost her status as a cleanser, and only then did she have a contract with Ma Kuxuan, and she was framed to the point where she is now working as a free coolie somewhere without pay, and is imprisoned by that same subordinate from time to time. Xiao Xing harassed him. It turned out that she was still Xiao Pu's high apprentice. Earlier, Qin Bai took the initiative to find Qin Pingon and open the skylight to speak frankly. The Xishan Jianin lineage, whose identity and actions are extremely concealed, once wanted to put the helm on Aquarius Island. Afterwards, according to Cui Dongshan's supplementary statement, when Lu Taozi's line purged the wronged person, on the surface it had a dispute with Dallas Ministry of Punishment that did not result in human life. The two sides held their own opinions, and the meaning of the Dali criminal department was very simple. It was up to the Dali dynasty to decide whether or not to kill and when. In the final analysis, Lu Taozi's and Cui Chan's philosophy of governing the country are different. Qin Buji was at Tongyi's house and had taken the initiative to invite Qin Pingon to be the chief guest of Xishan Jianyan's lineage, and was even willing to recommend Qin Ping to be the supreme guest of the general hall, with his senior brother Lu Taozi. And Qin Bai's so-called junior sister, that is, Xiao Pu, in front of him, the head of the former emperor of Yu dynasty in Tongyi's house, was cut off by her own hands. In fact, Qin Bai's most important thing at that time was her sentence: there are also dead men in other worlds. This means that the Manhuang, Qingming and Wuxia worlds must all have hidden chess pieces belonging to the three veins of purging wrongdoers, but the lengths of the lines are different. Even so, Qin Pingon still pretended not to understand Qin Bai's implication. Qin Bai is also an upright and forthright person. Seeing this situation, he didn't say anything more. Xiao Pu had nothing to say and Qin Pingon didn't want to talk. Lu Taozi has a special status, so he must choose his words carefully, and his words should not be too casual. There was a moment of silence. It was Qin Pingon who broke the silence first. Ma Yueme of the Ma family, among the group of female sword servants she trained, there is a man named Chunwen. Is he the one that Senior Xiao likes? Xiao Pu was in good spirits, as expected of a young hermit official who is good at seeing the subtleties. She nodded and said, Mr. Qin is not bad, she is indeed one of the candidates. Qin Pingon continued to ask, enshrined in the chime, she was once one of the cherried Xing Yi? Xiao Pu said, her real name is Gongsun Lingling and I once had high hopes for her. It was only because of a trial that she disregarded public and private interests, vented her anger and killed others, and violated the precepts, so she was expelled from the bamboo basket hall. The cleansing of injustices is divided into three veins, except for the three hall masters who each perform their duties, but there are two leaders in the main hall side by side, regardless of their status and authority. They are the holder of the environment and the holder of the lamp. Uncle Qing mentioned by Lu Taozi and Xiao Pu was the latter. Used to be. Before the rise of Hulong Daoist, Haoran was the #1 fire master in the world. It turns out that they pay attention to the difference between day and night in assassination. One is to kill in public under the eyes of everyone. To avenge the weak, to get revenge and to see the light of day again. One is sneaking in the night and killing people silently and covertly. Even though the night is dark, the law of heaven is still clear. Qin Pingon looked at Lu Taozi, smiled and said, not seeking fame or gain, tossing and turning in the world of mortals, looking for people to save, helping those in need, doing justice for the heavens is indeed respectable. Lu Taozi smiled and said, there is a long way to go. But Xiao Pu felt that there was something in that Qin Pingon's words. Didn't they seem like good words? In this matter, the young hermit official is well known. Qin Pingon asked, it is said that Xishan Jianyan's lineage was sent out of the country by my senior brother? Ernie, if I didn't really approve of your actions, would I be willing to chat with you so much here? Lu Taozi made no secret of this matter and revealed his short story. I had a discussion with Cui Chan on the matter of governing the country, but it was a pity that we did not agree with each other. In the end, Cui Chan still thought about my old acquaintance with someone. That's why he didn't kill us, Xishan Jianin. Facts have proved that Cui Chan is right. Qin Ping hesitated for a moment but still didn't say anything. There are not many people who can be regarded as friends by Senior Cui. Lu Taozi said, I once met a scholar surnamed Cui in Shenzhou of Zhongtu. For some reason he was sometimes sober and sometimes confused. But we are conversant in words and have similar personalities. We walked a long distance together and traveled together for many years. In the moonlight, there was a lot of drinking on the road. We didn't ask each other's identity, let alone explore it curiously. Before we parted, we still only knew the surname. Speaking of this, Lu Taozi showed a little sadness. I was just wondering about it back then. As a scholar, Mr. Cui has great knowledge, but his boxing skills are even higher. Back then, when the snow covered the sky and the earth, we traveled alone with a sword. We met by chance, we hit it off right away, and we went to the same restaurant if we wanted to ask about our thoughts. Qin Pingon corrected. Senior Xia's boxing skills are extremely high, but he has never been very knowledgeable. Lu Taozi nodded, bringing this matter up to Mr. Qin. I absolutely don't mean to understand that reasoning won't work, so we have to move it emotionally. Qin Ping smiled and said, Senior is worrying too much. Lu Taoji then continued. Although junior sister Qin failed to persuade Mr. Qin, I still refuse to give up. To be honest, even if Mr. Qin doesn't come today, I will take a trip to Luopa Mountain soon. Qin Pingon shook his head and said, Senior is kind enough to understand and being an official will be exempted. Lu Taoji hesitated to speak. Qin Pingon said, if it's just to bring up old things and chat about the past, I would like to personally invite my seniors here to have a drink at Luoba Mountain Bamboo House. Lu Taoji shook his head instead. Is there really no room for negotiation? Qin Pingon said, if anything, we've already had a drink by now. Bargaining with others is not my specialty. Xiao Pu stretched out a finger and frowned. Qin Ping turned to look at the girl. Jing Ding pretended to be calm and smiled shyly. Qin Ping just smiled and didn't care about anything with her. Like Pei Qian, she seems to have the ability to see through other people's hearts and minds, or is it due to the magical power of the flying sword? If it is said that the cultivators on the top of the mountain are all secretly fighting for the crossing, and they are all carrying buckets to catch water by their own means. So now all the major sects in the world are robbing people both openly and secretly. Compete for those who have become famous and live on the mountain and immediately strengthen the sect. Of course, they also grab the embryos of Taoism who have not yet entered the mountain, deepen their foundation and strive to gradually see success for 100 years or 1,000 years. For example, Qi Tingji's Dragon Elephant Sword sect is fighting with young hermit officials for the group of sword immortals hidden in the wild world. Of course, this is a dispute between gentlemen and it is far from being red-faced. I also want to keep quiet with Fu Shu, the first apprentice of Jing Juzhong in Baidi City, and rob that sword immortal Su Jun, Su Xia from Luxiazu, hoping that he can be the head of the sect. Fu Imo also personally found Wei Jin and invited him to walk in the same way, but Wei Jin refused. But Wu Shu, a martial artist at the end of Tongyi's Hao, has agreed to Fu Imo to be the chief guest secretary. What's more, Luopa Mountain has also snatched a new general worship old deaf child. Qingping Sword Sect also snatched 2 private swords of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Xing Yun and Lu Shui. To be honest, Qin Shanju and Luo Pashan can be said to be sitting firmly on the Daoist. If you have the ability, you will grab Xiaomo and Xiego from me? Moreover, Qin Pingon and Ning Ji, a newly recruited proud disciple, are the existence of what the master knows and teaches, and the disciples learn and know what they can. It's just that Qin Pingon never thought that the robbery was all on my head. If I remember correctly, the last one who recruited me seemed to be Han Yushu, the immortal patriarch of Wanyao sect. If he hadn't become the Dali national teacher, Lu Taoji and the others probably wouldn't have come to see him. Qin Pingon was more concerned about Ning Ji. Just as Qin Pingon guessed, Ning Ji, whose alias is Bai Yun, is very likely to be brought into this Taoist temple by his friend Zhou Xian, and then the master of the temple Qing Fengxian is qualified to teach Taoism with all his money. The world is extremely fast and he is far ahead of his peers. Xiao Pu smiled and said, Master Qin Shan, since you are not just the chief guest of Xishan Jianyin or Cherry Tsing Yi, then I have to explain clearly to you that the position of the supreme guest of the main hall is not yours. The kind of false title on the mountain that I think has great authority, and I am one of the only 3 people in the teacher's sect who can know the identity of everyone. Qin Pingon snorted. Xiao Pu was speechless for a moment. He just became the Grand Master of the Greatly Kingdom, so is he so arrogant? Even if you don't want to appreciate it, you don't even bother to say a few polite words? Qin Pingon said, I just refuse to be the newly established criminal officer of the Zhongtu Confucian Temple. Xiao Pu was stunned for a moment and she couldn't say a word. Lu Taoji said with a smile. Xiao Pu secretly stared at Mr. Qin for a while, and hoped that Mr. Qin would not be angry. Qin Pingon said, a good person walking on the road is like protecting the road for others. Why are others angry? Xiao Pu was obviously very surprised by this answer. Lu Taoji suddenly said something off-topic. I have a question I would like to ask fellow Taoists for advice. Qin Pingon said slowly, any questions must be answered. What is practice? As if nothing happened. Hearing this answer, Lu Taozi's eyes lit up. Xiao Pu chewed these simple 4 words carefully, only to feel that the aftertaste is endless. Qin Pingon clasped his fists and said, just leave it at that. Lu Taoji bowed his hand in return. Qin Pingon turned to leave, then suddenly turned around and said, Brother didn't say that you can return to Aquarius Island. Lu Taoji was caught off guard by the carbine gun and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Xiao Pu answered with help. But Cui Chan didn't say that he can't return to Aquarius Island. Lu Taoji knew something was wrong. As expected. Brother Cui is gone. Qin Pingon stopped and turned around, paused for a moment, smiled and said, "In Aquarius Island, there is no distinction between north and south. I have the final say on many things." Sword of Coming Chapter 1100. A person who has attained the Tao, a sword fairy, seems to be able to kill the world with a single word. Xiao Pu remained silent. She was instantly sure that the previous desperate fight in the Ma Mansion was definitely not Yu Pu versus Yu Pu as they estimated, with additional martial arts versus supernatural powers. It's immortal to immortal. As for the price of Qin Pingon and by Yu Jinglis borrowing of realms and Taoism, Xiao Pu and senior brother Lu had made their own estimates. Even if Qin Pingon was a martial artist at the limit, she still felt that she would definitely fall to the cave realm in one breath. Brother Lu said that Qin Pingan's martial arts physique is unusual. In Tongyi's how he is the strongest and has martial arts. Stop it, Jindan. Lu Taoji had no choice but to help smooth things over, explaining, "The people who were expelled by Cui Chan back then were just our Xishan Jianin lineage, and had nothing to do with Qin Bai and Xiao Pu's lineage. Their origin in Aquarius continent go, not bound by the rules of Dali. If it wasn't for Xishan Jianin and Cherry Xinjiai, who need to follow the orders of the main hall, and someone has to take turns to protect Master Qing, Lu will not set foot on Aquarius continent again." Qin Ping corrected with a smile. "It's just a gift to leave the country, not to mention expulsion. Brother Cui is very polite to Xishan Jianin's lineage. Xiao Pu has a straightforward personality and she can't listen to this kind of yin and yang." She almost wanted to add fuel to the flames. How can the Great Li dynasty, which is only half a continent, manage the affairs of the south? Lu Taoji first reminded Xiao Pu from his heart to keep his heart and not to be mistaken, and then he continued to explain. Xiao Pu retreated from Yuaning to break through the realm, and the process was extremely dangerous. Her demons manifested. A man surnamed Chen. Later in an assassination, Xiao Pu was cut to pieces by a certain sword fairy. In the boundary of Naka City, she still could not escape this sword robbery, so she became a ghost. So today I met Qin Xianxia and she was a little out of sorts. The demon in his heart was a man surnamed Chen, but the one who killed his real body was a sword fairy surnamed Chen, and now he had to deal with a man surnamed Chen, which was really uncomfortable. When Lu Taoji mentioned the sad past, the woman in the green skirt snorted coldly. Past events are old events, but to Xiao Pu, who is stubborn, each event is like the present event. Xiao Pu's expression was gloomy immediately and he spoke harshly in the market, always saying that she would not take this revenge and swear that she would not be a human being, but she was a ghost, but she still couldn't take revenge. It's not bad if we say we don't share the sky. She is a ghost and the enemy who is still a living person has a different path, it is still true. But now she is still walking in broad daylight, but he has long since disappeared to other places. Xiao Pu crossed the border several times, exchanging his merits with the general hall for 2 or 3 news, and often exchanging his virtue for guidance. But it is a pity that he has been working hard to find him. No, according to this, it is indeed a literal meaning of together. Now that Qin Pingon has taken a trip to Yushuan Kingdom, he has already had his revenge, and what about her? People are more angry than people, ghosts are more angry than people. Are you angry to death? Qin Pingon said. Qin Pingon, a cultivator and sword cultivator, can understand it, but junior brother Cui Chan and Dallas' new national teacher do not accept it. He glanced at Xiao Pu, who was of the Tsing-Yi lineage. Even the secretary of the Ministry of Criminal Justice refused. You want me to be a county magistrate? Invitation and persuasion fail and they feel uninterested in Lu's face. Who has the big face? A female ghost fairy. Xiao Pu is also a top assassin from the family of Cherry and Tsing-Yi. She should have a mind of Taoism as iron and immovable as a mountain, so that her will not be as weak as a piece of paper swaying in the wind. Xiao Pu remained silent. It was only because senior brother Lu reminded her from the heart that if she continued to speak freely, Lu Taoji would move out of the main hall rules. In fact, there are 2 reasons Lu Taoji did not say it. The young sword immortal in front of him, whose body is full of Tao energy so thick that it is almost self-contained, is extremely mentally strong, so the yang energy is pure, scorching like fire, following the qi like flowing water, moving upwards in front of his eyes and for the eyes. So for ghosts, even if the opponent stands still, it is equivalent to a sword questioning. Lu Taoji is in the fairyland and he has worked hard in Taoist cultivation so he can take it lightly. Xiao Pu is only in the Jade realm so he is easily led by Qin Pingan's Taoism and state of mind. At this time the situation is quite mysterious. When the ghost Xiao Pu sees Qin Pingan he feels like holding a mirror involuntarily, and the more mysterious thing is that Qin Pingan, who is the man in the mirror, seems to be able to arouse Xiao Pu's state of mind. Like a puppet on a string. Furthermore, Xiao Pu was the one who had the most entanglements with Qin Pingan among the cleansers, not one of them. Whether it's Lu Taoji or Qin Bai, Qin Pingan is more likely to be a young hermit official and disciple of a literary sage. So when we meet we can relax and discuss the matter. Only Xiao Pu was not like this. She had seen many things about Qin Pingan when she was young so she was the most difficult to calm down. Of course Qin Pingan is still young now. But Lu Taoji believed that Qin Pingan had already thought of these two reasons. Whether you say it or not it makes no difference. Lu Taoji said, the position of the leader of Xiao Pu's lineage has been vacant for a long time. For hundreds of years Xiao Pu has been busy and traveled all over the 3 continents. Especially during the Great War she took the initiative to go to Tongyi's Hao. It is to accumulate external skills so as to fill in the vacant position. After Qin Bai resigned from Qin Bai's lineage, there has never been a person who is both virtuous and high level. As a rule, the person with the highest merit will be the leader, the person with the highest realm will be the leader, and the person with the most power will be the preacher, responsible for finding the seeds of the immortal seedlings. Qin Pingan nodded. If it is said that justice is at ease in people's hearts, one cannot ignore the merits one deserves. He looked at Xiao Pu again. Since this woman in the green skirt is one of the 3 candidates for the leader of the Cherry Tsing-yi lineage, how high are the other 2 candidates? Xiao Pu glanced at him. Seeing through his carefully arranged mountain and water restrictions to deceive the eye, and recognizing his true appearance? Don't be like that certain young child prodigy who has been coveting Gongsun Lingling for a long time. Don't like a slender young woman, but prefer an older plump woman? Is it any wonder that Sui Jingqing, who was so beautiful in the city, was looked down upon back then? Is it the number of roads? Qin Ping smiled. First there is the excessive drinking of Gaozhu, and then wrong way of the woman in the green skirt. Your eyes are all on your buttocks. Yuma felt that the atmosphere was too dignified and there was no need to make the relationship so tense. Lu Taoji said with a smile. Since we have not negotiated a deal with Qin Guosher, the Yuan Chaoxian of Huzhou has also come to Chongyang Temple, and after that the affairs of the teacher will be all over. Leave it to Xiao Pu to deal with and there is nothing wrong with the main hall. I am happy to relax, unload the burden and go to other continents to try my luck. To be honest, Qin Guosher and Dali Song help Luopashan to select fairy seedlings and practice martial arts. Wizards may not be stronger than us. After all, the Dali court can only find good materials and beautiful jade in Aquarius continent and Tongye continent, but we can work silently for 20 years in Hauran 8 continents for a chief minister. Luopa Mountain is closed and opened again. The number of monks in the upper lineage is probably much more than the number of monks in the lower lineage. Qin Ping waved his hands and said with a smile, busy is good for being busy and lazy is for being lazy. Senior Lu doesn't need to persuade you anymore. Reach out and don't hit the smiling person. It's not surprising that many people are polite. Qin Pingan thought for a moment and said, Xishan Jianyan's lineage from now on, whether it is here to protect the way for the elders of the master secretly, or go to a certain place outside the Dalizhou prefecture. There is no problem for people from the land to return to the mountain and lighten the lintel of the gate. But the ugly words are up front and I will report this matter to the Dali court for record. Lu Taoji, Xiao Pu and Junqing are all high scholars. I regard you as gentlemen with a bright moon and a clear breeze. Don't take me and the Dali court as fools. Lu Taoji knew the elegant meaning when he heard the strings, nodded immediately and said, if we have a conflict with Dali Punishment Department Nian Gonlang because of a certain genius of cultivation, the members of Xishan Jianyan's lineage will take the initiative to give in and choose another place to choose disciples. Probably this is reciprocity reciprocating. Sensing Qin Pingan's gaze wandering over him again, Xiao Pu had no choice but to follow up. I haven't become the leader of Cherry Tsing-yi, so I don't dare to say anything, but I will send a letter to the General Hall to make some suggestions. When I met Dallas Xingbafu and Nianganlang who were going out, I just voluntarily backed down. It's just that whether this matter will be successful or not, still needs to be decided by the main hall, and I don't care what I say. Qin Pingon nodded and smiled. The starting point of a business is not money but integrity. It's just that Xiaopu couldn't help feeling anxious. More than once or twice this person didn't look at her face, he wanted to look at her figure. When a man looks at a woman, he doesn't look at the face but at the chest, and he doesn't pay attention to the eyebrows and eyes but the waist and hips. Is it really the same taste as that thief? What Qin Ping was really interested in, of course, was not what Xiaopu misunderstood. It was the magic robe on the woman in the green skirt that cast multiple spells and restrictions, which seemed to be a mountain treasure that started as a half-immortal soldier and might even reach the rank of an immortal soldier. Moreover, the more Qin Ping looked at it, the more familiar it became. It turned out that Zhou Xian, who was a childish-looking real person in Hehuan Mountain, had a cassock on his body which was magnificent. A certain abandoned disciple of the heavenly King Chao Rong is himself a book of Taoism without words. It can help Zhou Xian get through the Nether Pass, ignore the restriction of yin and yang to a certain extent, pass through the gate of ghosts, and walk on the road to Huangquan with the posture of a living person in the yang world. But how far he can go in the underworld probably depends on the monk's merits. Dao power is strong or weak. But the one worn by the woman in the green skirt is somewhat different from Qin Qian's Daoist cassock, not only because it has a higher rank, but also because there are sun, moon, gold, wood, water, fire, earth, and 5 stars in the Qiao celestial phenomena, which are left-handed and right-handed. Zhou Xian's Taoist robe is left-handed, and the robe worn by the green skirt woman is right-handed, which is right. The real Zhou Xian is a living person, but Xiaopu is a ghost. It takes the exact opposite to reverse yin and yang, and eventually lead to the same goal, and each walks the path of the underworld. Lu Taoji laughed from his heart. Xiaopu, you and I, for example, Qin Guosher, can hear you and me now. As for the thoughts outside of your heart, whether they can be seen through by Qin Guosher, I don't know, it's hard to be sure. Xiaopu's heart was shocked, his face was ugly. She was more horrified than surprised. Qin Ping smiled and said, the realm is low, but we are not far away from each other, and we can barely hear the vague voice of the heart. As for the thoughts, they are so hidden that they cannot be seen through. We can only rely on random guesses which may not be accurate. Lu Taoji smiled and said, Qin Guosher really treats people with sincerity. Qin Ping smiled and said, I guess this sentence is not irony? Xiaopu sighed quietly, not talking about others, but only talking about her life, as if anyone with the surname Qin was not easy to provoke. My old lady owed you the surname Qin in her previous life? Qin Pingon clasped his hands together. There will be a period later, next time I will drink. Lu Taoji clasped her fists and said, the next time we meet again, we will probably meet again in another continent. We will be in a foreign land together. At that time, Lu will drink the Xianxia wine from the second shopkeeper. Is it true? Qin Ping smiled and turned to leave. The last time I was discussing matters in the Confucian temple, Mrs. Xianxia, who was in the bamboo sea cave, didn't say anything. Lu Taoji was about to return to Shirtai, finish her studies, and then leave Chongyang Temple and Aquarius Island. When she turned around and took the first step in a green gown and long gown, in an instant, the woman in the green dress who was complaining about herself seemed to be taken over by someone, and Xiaopu's soul, together with the magic weapon of the rank of the fairy soldier, in an instant, the gown turned into a piece of washing clothes in the hands of a woman making clothes by the water, wringing out the stream, and twisting them into a long rope, shaped like a short spear or a blue long sword. A straight line hit the back of the young sword fairy Qin Guosher. The vision was too fast and silent. Lu Taoji just tiptoed and his figure floated into the sky of the boulder, but relying on the instinct of an assassin, he felt something was wrong. Lu Taoji suddenly turned his head to see. The ghost fairy was dumbfounded on the spot. It is Daoist as tough as him, and he is still doomed to be unable to stop him. But Lu Taoji didn't sit still, and when the situation got worse, he wanted to drag the soul of Xiaopu back and stay where he was, even if this action will tear her soul and robe apart and hurt her Dao foundation. It is better than Xiaopu making another move, losing his mind and going crazy, and dying with that Xianxia at the expense of his life. In a daze, Lu Taoji only felt that the axis of the sky and the earth were rotating together, and the scene in his eyes changed again and again, as if someone was holding his head and staring at a dozen or so scroll albums on the table. In the end, Lu Taoji was placed in the vast and boundless void, with a galaxy of colorful colors and star rivers shining, and a long golden bridge across the realm of Taishu. The soul of Xiaopu, together with the assassination of the green dress was unstoppable. Lu Taoji repeatedly made tricks and assisted with swordsmanship, but found that he could not hold Xiao Pu's soul at all. I can only watch helplessly as the cyan-colored force breaks apart those paper-thin fantasy worlds, making a series of subtle silk-tearing sounds. Then he broke through the dense sword formations, talisman formations, and lightning strikes temporarily arranged by the opponent. The powerful fists like the protection of the gods, several magic robes. It was hard to distinguish whether it was the tip of the spear or the tip of the sword, and they were against Qin Pingan's back. Pass through. That Xiao Pu still couldn't understand his hatred. He obviously wanted to make progress, smash the body of this young sword fairy thoroughly, and then smash his soul so that he would not only fall but also die. Perhaps it was the tenacity of Qin Pingan's body and mind, as well as the existence of the bird in the cage and the moon in Jingzhongyue. The combination of the three was beyond the assassin's expectation. In the realm of boundless emptiness, the assassin let out a long sigh and fell short. Is it so difficult to just kill an immortal? If Qin Ping's injury was only serious but not killed, even if he fell into the same situation as ordinary people, it would still be meaningless. Knowing that this person is not very old but it is not easy to kill, but he did not expect it to be so difficult to kill. It's God's will. Is there really no shortcut to the road to the 14 realms of Hadao? Since one blow failed, he had no choice but to retreat. Lu Taoji seemed to be in some kind of drowning situation again, and her breathing was stagnant. The picture scroll scene is like the tide receding. At the same time, in the depths of Xiao Pu's mind, a guest in his mind suddenly shattered, scattered into a wisp of green smoke and was taken away. The slender long river of time sacrificed earlier is the path of magic for this person. Indeed, there is no better way in the world to eliminate Dao marks and destroy evidence than this. That existence gave a huff in my heart and I was very surprised. It turned out that the young hermit was standing there, motionless. Instead of following his path of light and a section of Huangquan Road, he chose to be injured rather than being engulfed by the long river of time, and followed the flow of water to reverse, returning to him and Xiao. The same place where Pu and Lu Taoji were together a moment ago. Qin Pingan spoke hoarsely and said to Yuan Yao, "Wait." Everything returned to normal outside the Chongyang pavilion. Xiao Pu's face was pale and colorless, as if in a lifetime a mass of paste. Lu Taozi's heart was extremely heavy. If Qin Pingan's teacher asked him to blame, he could relax a little bit. Now that this kind of thing happened, how can he settle the score? To put it mildly, it was Cherry Tsing-Yi's lineage and Xishan Jianyan's lineage who held grudges in their hearts and assassinated Dali Guosher. But to put it more seriously, it was the 3 lines of the cleansing people who colluded with the wilderness. Instead, Qin Pingan, who was assassinated, turned around with a calm expression. I thought that I would get a sword from Wuzhou from Qingming Tianxiao for no reason. I never thought that it was the ghost who took the lead in attacking, but only wanted to kill people. What was the other party planning? On the top of the city in the past, when Qin Pingan was just serving as a hermit official, there was a native sword cultivator of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, who also violently killed people without warning. Having suffered a loss once, Qin Pingan will not make a second mistake, so this second time as a guest at Chongyang Temple he came prepared and wore a few more robes, the military armor. Thousands of days to guard against thieves, practice makes perfect. Even the 14th level female crown, the sword that Wuzhou crosses the world, Qin Pingan is ready to take the next sword. This time it is not a 14th level sword. It's better to simply move to the Confucian Temple Gongda Forest to read books. So Lu Taoji and Xiao Pu felt thrilled in this endless sneak attack, but Qin Pingan, who was assassinated, was fine. Why did Qin Ping look at Xiao Pu's magic robe many times? Besides, Qin Pingan is very disciplined, so he would stare at a woman again and again. Generally speaking, if the newly promoted 14th realm of the wild world wants to run away with Qin Pingan on Howren World's side, he must first pass the level of the Holy of Rites and the Confucian Temple. It is not impossible, but it is not big. Because Li Xing is outside the sky, staring at the green road. So after thinking about it, Qin Pingan was most worried about taking a sneaky detour, such as a great monk passing a dark road to assassinate himself. That's why Qin Pingan cared so much about the magic robe on the woman in the green skirt, so be careful. Naturally, Xiao Pu couldn't argue with anything, and when she wanted to speak a few times she swallowed it back. Lu Taoji was also helpless. How should he explain this to Qin Pingan, and how to explain it to the Zhongtu Confucian Temple? That assassin, no matter how he possessed Xiaopu, his realm is so high and his methods are so secret, it's unimaginable. A bottom press technique of a monk at the top of the Ascension realm? No, it's only half a step away from perfection. Was it a 14th realm candidate deliberately targeting Qin Pingon in a deliberate sneak attack? In the battle between Qin Pingon and Ma Kuxuan, he was indeed seriously injured. After being hit like this, it made the situation worse, and the injury was even worse. Qin Pingon coughed a few times, clenched his fists against his mouth, rested for a while, retracted his hands and sleeves and said with a smile, "It's okay." He added another sentence to ease the atmosphere, "Senior Lu still doesn't need to think about it." Lu Taoji smiled wryly, "Can this be considered all right?" Even Xiaopu wanted to give this person a thumbs up when he heard the words. The man is so open-minded, the hidden official is indeed a hero. Qin Pingon thought for a while and explained, "Lu Taoji, Xiaopu, you really don't have to feel guilty. I have to thank Xiaopu for protecting a friend from disaster. Otherwise it will be replaced by Shujian Huzenji, the female ghost Shui Rui in the capital." Qin Pingon had already roughly figured out the main line, looked at the woman in the green skirt and said with a smile, "But Xiaopu really has to thank me once for being able to avoid a calamity of swords and soldiers, and there is no hidden danger for a flawed Dao heart, just right offset. We don't have to say thank you hypocritically. A person who cultivates the Tao, relying on external objects, acting on his will, crossing the boundary between yin and yang, and going to the realm of the underworld to find clues to the enemy, should not do it again and again. Walk by the river often without getting your shoes wet. If you walk too much at night, it's not good. You have to take revenge. It doesn't mean giving someone's head to the enemy for free." If I'm not mistaken, the Chou family surnamed Qin you're looking for either attached himself to this ghost early in the underworld or was eaten up and wiped out by it. Maybe the ghosts in the Yang world are the fairies of mountains and rivers for them to fly across. The name, Qin Pingon, is like the green curtain wine flag of a restaurant in Xianxia Ferry. Xiaopu listened patiently to a young man's teachings and never bothered him. In the past she was not so open-minded when she was with her most respected senior sister, Qin Bai. On the premise of knowing that senior brother Lu is here to protect the Dao, she only said that she came to Aquarius Island temporarily from Luzhou in Beiju this time, and came to the capital of Yushuan Kingdom to watch Qin Pingon take revenge on the Ma family in Wuxia Street. Are these thoughts really my own? What a coincidence. At this moment Xiaopu felt as if a big stone had landed in his heart, and his heart became somewhat clearer. Seeing that she hadn't moved, Qin Pingon could only remind her, "Xiaopu, just to be cautious, the magic robe you are wearing should be handed over to the main hall to be refined again, so it will be considered safe." Xiaopu realized later. She quickly stretched out her hand to grab the robe and tore off the robe, not daring to keep it in her hands, and handed it to Lu Taoji, who quickly put it in his sleeve. Lu Taoji didn't dare to take it lightly, using several methods of overwhelming victory. She is still in the attire of a woman in a green skirt, perhaps because of the coexistence of the blindfold and the robe, so her face and figure have changed at this moment, and she is full of beauty. The scene of the pair of boys and girls in the gazebo, separated by a short distance, has long been shrouded in white mist, making it hard to see clearly. Qin Pingon knew it in his heart. Such a hot taro. Lu Taoji accepted it as soon as he said it. The key is that this sword fairy never had the slightest change of heart. It can be seen from this that the three veins of the people who cleanse their grievances are indeed intimate, and they act boldly and honestly. Qin Pingon felt a little grudge and then disappeared. "I politely said before that I don't care about it, but now I really don't care about it with you. This is called treating people with sincerity and combining words with deeds." Lu Taoji seemed to be aware of Qin Pingon's temptation and smiled wryly in his heart. On the wall of the Chongyang temple, there stands a young woman with her hair in a bun. It was Pei Qian who came here from the Qinghuang temple in the capital. Qin Pingon heard the content of Pei Qian's secret language, nodded with a smile and said, "It's a coincidence, it's a coincidence." It turns out that Zhou Fangyu, the highest in Haoran Tianxia Town God's temple, happened to take General Fan to visit Aquarius Island in private. As a result, there was a murderous act by a ghost from the underworld, and it was right under his nose, which made Zhou Qinghuang have to immediately return to the town god's temple in Shenzhou Zhongtu, and sacrifice a certain kind of merit that was cast by the holy saint and sealed by the most holy teacher mystery. I went to Fengdu myself. Before Zhou Qinghuang left, he asked Pei Qian to send a message to help her master to apologize, and made an exception to reveal a secret. According to Zhou Fangyi's deduction, this ghost, which has been blocked for many years outside the threshold of the 14th realm, wanted to kill Qin Pingon, the last hermit official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi from the side of heaven, which is neither good nor evil nor selfish, replacing all the souls of the monster race who died in the Great Wall of Sword Qi in the wild world is like helping them redress their grievances, and earn a large amount of Yin virtue by virtue of this, which is used as their own merits in the 14th realm of harmony. On the ghost path, it is possible to help him take one more step. As for the identity of the ghost, it is not appropriate to spread it to the outside world for the time being. But for this matter, Fengdu of Hades and Town God's Temple on Earth guarantee that they will give an explanation. Previously, there was indeed a majestic voice resounding like thunder, which resounded through the vast territory of the small semi-underworld in that land outside the jurisdiction of Fengdu. This seat wants to eradicate a demon for the world and kill Qin Pingon, a living person in the world. Before the countless billions of ghosts in the vast underworld came back to their senses, the sound gradually weakened. Afterwards, many walking ghosts who were born as monks from the wild monster tribe raised their heads and looked around, waiting for the good news. Waiting to no avail. I don't know if Qin Pingon or that fellow was beheaded. Under the scolding and whipping of all the underworld ghosts on the road, they had no choice but to keep moving forward. And the candidate ghost of the 14th realm used several life-saving methods that greatly compromised his Taoism. He gave up the dojo, ran away again and disappeared. Zhou Fengyu showed a majestic Dharma image, raised one arm high, held a sacred object, like holding a scorching sun in his hand, cleared the way along the way, melted endless shady scenes with infinite light, and brought 4 gods including Gon, Lu, Fan and Xia. General, together with King Hades of a certain hall in digital Fengdu, rushed to the dojo abandoned by the ghost one after another. Pei Qian asked worriedly, "Master, are you okay?" Qin Ping smiled and said, "This is a small injury, it's drizzled, and the master won't be rolling all over the floor in pain, losing his demeanor as a master." Pei Qian grinned. Qin Pingon, Lu Taoji and the others bid farewell, shrinking their ground to the top of the wall, then jumped off the wall with Pei Qian and walked towards the small house. Lu Taoji, who looked like a burly Taoist, returned to the stone platform. Xiaopu didn't want the 2 nephews to see his true face, so he used his blindfold again and sat on the edge of the stone platform. Lu Taoji smiled and said, "Why don't you say a few words from your heart, but point the needle to the wheat on?" On his side, every word is not pleasant to the ear. How Xiaopu's temperament is, just look at her close friends with Pima Zhong Zhuquan and Ia's house Xie for many years. "I have a thin skin and I can't imitate Zhuquan and Xie raunchy talk," Xiaopu said unhappily. "Besides, there are differences between men and women. If senior brother Lu expresses his admiration for a young hermit official, it is a sympathy between men. I am a woman, so I won't be misunderstood by him and think that I am interested in him." Lu Taoji asked a good question. "Interesting?" Xiaopu didn't answer the question and smiled sweetly. "It's meaningless." Lu Taoji laughed a lot. On the other side of the gazebo, the 2 children were very surprised. When their master still showed his true feelings like this, he would be damned. Xiaopu asked, "He obviously agrees with our purpose of doing things. Being a dignified and distinguished chief minister Taishang Kiching is a good thing. Why did he refuse? He is the only one who has truly learned the essence and can be said to inherit the mantle. It is normal for the closed disciples of Wensheng's lineage to not want to join us, but now that he has become the Grand Master of the Great Li Kingdom, why is he still unwilling?" Lu Taoji said, "Mr. Qin has already given the answer." Xiaopu raised his eyebrows. "Why?" Lu Taoji smiled and said, "How does he evaluate Tui Qing?" Xiaopu was stunned. "I see. Boxing does not exceed the rules, great knowledge. Putting it on Qin Ping's body, there are layers of identities, no more than a pure swordsman." Lu Taoji said, "What's more, Qin Xianxian's situation is special now. Only sword practice is the top priority. He can't help but relax for a moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't even refuse the invitation from the Confucian temple. We outsiders think that he is in his early 40s. Already among the immortals, the momentum is as fast as a bamboo and the speed is fast enough, but he himself may not think so. Maybe it is still slow?" There are some old grievances. The outside world sees the flowers in the fog and we don't know it. We all know the general situation. Practice boxing to suspend one's life. The willows are dark and the flowers brighten another village. Continue the Chongqing Bridge and finally become a sword cultivator on the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Now that you are alive and return to Haoran, you can climb to the top and see the road. It is really not suitable to be distracted. You need to be focused and nothing else. Gu. Going to the highest place after a lot of hard work. What I want is to beat Zhou Xian in boxing and one in swordsmanship. It doesn't matter if the former is successful or not, but the latter must be achieved. Hearing this, Xiao Pu gently touched the green skirt and murmured, "No matter how talented and clever he is, how could he win over that one?" Lu Taoji smiled and said, "You can't rely too much on external things and you don't have to think too much about other people's affairs." Xiao Pu remained silent, rolling his eyes charmingly. Qin Ping was walking on the street with Pei Qian. After walking a few steps, he suddenly realized something. The wormwood tree hanging at the gate of the house was given by Lu Qin to the female ghost Shui Rui, and he could go around it. Donate it to Qing Fengxian, who should have become the preacher of Baiyun? Can it even be used to block the cross-boundary sneak attack of the Ascension Realm ghost? Lu Chen's seemingly understated move. As long as Qin Pingon wants to understand the joints, wouldn't he want to accept the 3 favors of teacher Lu at the same time? It seems that I really have to learn the calculation and derivation of the previous inner repulsion. When Qin Ping took back a hidden sword talisman left in Chongyang Temple, this talisman was named Ripples. So if there was a slight disturbance, it could be recorded one by the talisman. It was one of the many talismans that Qin Pingon drew at random when he and Lu Chen were temporarily borrowing the realm. This talisman is not small and the threshold for using it is very high. It takes a fairy to sacrifice it, post it somewhere and wait for the rabbit. Before throwing stones at his own feet, Qin Pingon drew a box of talismans and hid them quietly. Because he returned the Taoism of the 14th realm, he fell to the nascent soul and all of them could not be used. Now that the realm is high, the confidence is sufficient. It is up to you whether you use it for yourself, sell it to make money, or give it as a gift from the mountain. And inside that box, there is also a stack of big talismans that can only be used by monks in the Ascension realm. Pei Qian said, "They're back." Qin Ping smiled and said, "You don't have to follow, sacrifice the 3 mountains talisman, go back to Dadu Tongyi's Hao and get busy with business, master don't have to worry." Pei Qian remained silent. After much deliberation, Qin Pingon could only come up with a lame reason. He seemed to say casually, "As long as it is not the end of the world, it will not be of great help to the master. So when I arrived at Tongyi's Hao, I practiced boxing while I was busy with the general affairs. Don't slack off in one thing and don't feel complacent because you think it's not difficult to join the Guasian. You are now at the level of arrogance. Master has returned to Guasian and Chao Ci is even more amazing." Pei Qian hummed, "Master, don't worry, he will work hard." Qin Pingon immediately regretted it and was very distressed, so he immediately changed his words. "You don't have to work too hard." Pei Qian didn't say anything, but pursed his lips and slightly frowned his 2 slender willow eyebrows. Qin Pingon bent his fingers, lightly smashed a chestnut on Pei Qian's head and said softly, "You want to walk out of a world that belongs to Pei Qian, and when you talk and do things in the future, don't always think about whether the master will feel that you have heard and seen it. There is a mistake. Before the master came back, he did a good job. It makes no sense that when the master came back he became restrained, as if Pei Qian deliberately avoided that Jing Qian, and Jing Qian avoided her master. This is not good." Pei Qian was still sullen. Qin Ping put his hands into his sleeves and almost wanted to reach out and slap himself. He shouldn't have mentioned Chao Ci's magic. No, this account has to be settled on Chao Ci's head. No, it's on his face. Pei Qian took out a 3-mountain talisman from his sleeve, suddenly stepped up a few steps, walked in front of the master, then turned around and walked back, grinning. "Master, let's go, see you later." Qin Pingon nodded with gentle eyes, and made a gesture of sticking a talisman on his forehead. Pei Qian blushed and took out the 3-mountain talisman, imagining 2 continents and 3 mountains in her mind. Zitong Mountain in the south of Aquarius continent, Qingjing Mountain in the northern continent of Tongye, and a certain mountain near Yunyan Kingdom in the middle of Dadu. She disappeared in a flash. Flying several times, he soon appeared on a mountaintop across continents. Qin Ping walked towards the house. Indeed, as Lu Taoji said, on the road of martial arts, Wanting to stand shoulder to shoulder with Xianxia and then catch up with him is of course one of the two greatest visions of Qin Ping's learning boxing in this life, but the final result is far less important than the process. One day in the future, if Wen Quan can really defeat Xianxia, that would be a joyous surprise. Losing, it seems, not ashamed. Anyway, Xianxia can win my punch, so it doesn't prevent me from punching Xianxia in the face. As for practicing swords, the process is very important, the result is more important. A sword can defeat one person, that's enough. For example, this person is Yu Dou. Sword of Coming Chapter 1101. Back at the house, before Qin Pingan entered, he heard Lu Xianyang's loud voice talking about how he was on Jinwu Mountain, how he was like of swordsmanship and what a hero he was. Gukin was too lazy to expose Lu Xianyang's braggadocio and didn't write a draft. This guy went to the Jinwu Mountain Patriarch Hall to block the door, but there was no conflict. The two male and female patriarchs of Jinwu Mountain rushed to the door together, and they were very respectful to the suzerain of the Longquan sword sect. Lu Xianyang visited several forbidden halls that are usually not open to the public. When Gukin got there, the leisurely Lu Jianxian was drinking tea. But I don't deny that Lu Xianyang, who is serious, looks like a dog. He said that the sword is not a sword fairy and the suzerain is full of style. Going to Jinwu Mountain, Lu Xianyang went directly to the Patriarch Hall with his sword, but when he left he took Gukin down the mountain on foot. Facing the old Patriarch of Jinwu Mountain who personally sent them to the mountain gate, Lu Xianyang smiled and asked if he wanted to make up for the ceremony himself. The implication is that he can go through the mountain gate first, then take a trip to the Shinto and finally walk down the mountain again. The old patriarch who is responsible for adding lamp oil to the Patriarch Hall year after year said with a smile that Lu Jianxian need not be so polite. Before Ma Kuxuan went down the mountain, he had already left the genealogy on his own, leaving some extremely rare and precious treasures behind. Not only that, but Ma Kuxuan also cancelled Yu Shiwa's name and Daoist name on the Golden Jade genealogy of Jinwu Mountain's closely guarded Patriarch Hall. Seeing Qin Pingan walking slowly into the hospital, Gukin seemed to be more depressed and asked in her heart, "What's going on?" Qin Pingan said, "It's nothing, it can't be explained clearly in a few sentences. I don't have the energy to speak for the time being, and I will review the game with you when I have a chance." Lu Xianyang didn't know if he was forgiving or he didn't see anything, so he waved to Qin Pingan, "Come in for a drink." Qin Pingan said, "I can't drink, I share, if you want to drink more you can do it for me." Lu Xianyang laughed and said, "Whether it's beautiful to drink in my hometown or to be close to people in my hometown. I almost forgot this is not a small town." When Qin Pingan sat down on the bench, Gukin looked outside the house and asked for no reason, "Can you understand it this way? Rain is actually money." Lu Xianyang said carelessly, "Spring rain is as expensive as oil and rain comes after a long drought. The old saying makes sense. It's not about money." Gukin was non-committal. Gu Lingyu was more curious about the young hermit's answer. "I never thought that," Qin Pingan just echoed, "it can be understood in this way." Gukin glanced at Lu Xianyang. Was he right? Lu Xianyang was so annoyed. "You two are half-educated scholars who haven't been to a serious school for a day, so you don't pay attention to a serious scholar like me?" Sensing Qin Pingan's eyes, Lu Xianyang knew it and shook his head. Anyway, he, Lu Xianyang, did not benefit from the great way from the beginning to the end of this scattered way of the patriarchs of the three teachings. Gukin said abruptly, "My surname is Lu, when are you going to hold the wedding banquet? To be precise, can you arrange the banquet earlier or later?" Lu Xianyang sprayed Gukin with a sip of wine, and Gukin waved away the hidden weapons with a wave of his sleeve. Lu Xianyang scolded angrily, "Little slug, you just say so if you don't want to be the best man. Is it rare for me?" Gukin said unhappily, "I don't care about being the best man, I just want to listen to the bottom of the wall." Lu Xianyang was immediately defeated and resentfully said, "This kind of vulgarity, if you can avoid it, let's avoid it." Qin Pingan was a little strange and asked in his heart, "Yushuan Kingdom is not close to Jinwu Mountain. How did you go back and forth? Did you use the Sanshan talisman?" Lu Xianyang sneered and said, "In Lu Jiangxian's spare time he created his own sword Guangyun, which is enough to open up the world, and the speed is not inferior to that of a monk in the Ascension realm." Gukin said, "There is a secret escapism method in Baidi City, but it is more expensive to use and there is a fly in the ointment. The genealogical monks of ordinary sects are seeking Taoism hard, but in Baidi City, Gukin chooses Taoism at random to learn according to his mood. Pu Lu and the others, although they had already guessed in their hearts, but when Gukin said the word Baidi City, they still pretended not to hear this and pretended not to know who the young man in Confucian shirt drinking at the same table was. Qin Pingon asked in his heart, "Is there something urgent?" Gukin said, "Lu Yuzhou just promised me to be the deputy suzerain. Because of emotion and reason, I have to go to the capital of Yunyan Kingdom in Tonghishao to meet this future right-hand man." After the wild farewell, Gukin asked Yu Shifu to help send a few words and a gift to Lu Yuzhou. "I hope that Lu Yuzhou can serve as the deputy suzerain of the new sect. In the future the sect's top and bottom, inside and outside, from people to affairs, except for the suzerain Gukin, will be arranged by Lu Yuzhou himself." Gukin also gave Lu Yuzhou a small wooden box inlaid with 100 treasures. It was empty, but if the restriction was successfully lifted he could talk to Gukan. Even if the two parties were on the same continent, the number of words and the time limit for words were limited, and is directly linked to the level of the realm of both parties. Gukin has always had a temper of daring to think and do. Since everyone is fighting for talents, he will grab the richest Qi trainer in the future. The one he fell in love with was Lu Yuzhou, the future head of the Lu family in Ayazu. On the other hand, Zhongsu and his ilk in Huangli Island and Shujian Lake are actually dispensable. Lu Xianying rubbed his chin. "It's really not a trivial matter, little slug. I forgive you. If you want to hurry up. Try not to delay being the best man for the wedding, and rely on Qin Pingon to persuade you to drink. With you here, you won't be afraid of being drunk. On the wedding night in the bridal chamber we can't sleep until dawn." Qin Pingon hesitated for a moment and said cautiously, "Lu Xianying, can you put the wine in the wedding banquet of Credit Moon this year on the Mid-Autumn Festival?" I checked the almanac and asked Li Xing. "It is indeed a good day for marriage. Of course, if the date has already been fixed, just pretend I didn't say it." Gukin pouted. If Master Wan had already made an arrangement and Qin Pingon came to such a trick, it is estimated that he would not even think about being Lu Xianying's best man, nor would he even think about drinking wedding wine. Lu Xianying's eyes lit up. He rubbed his hands together and laughed. "Why would you ask Li Xing about this kind of thing? How embarrassing. Possible, I just said, if Qin Pingon, you have a lot of face now, why don't you just put it away?" "Li Xing, please come over to drink the wedding wine. You can sit at the main table, and it would be better to say a few marriage testimony." Qin Pingon felt a headache when he heard it, and stretched out his hands to rub the center of his brows. But he was seriously thinking about this matter. If Li Xing had agreed to go to the Confucian temple to be that official, would it be feasible? However, Gukin started to pour cold water on the hot-headed sect master Lu, and said with a sneer, "Why, do you want Qin Pingon to drag Li Xing to listen to the wall again?" Lu Xianying quickly turned his head and said a few childish words. Lu Xianying drank a bowl of wine, wiped his mouth and said with a smile, "The exact date of the wine display has not yet been decided. Is it August 15th this year? I have to go to your sister-in-law to calculate the total first, and then discuss it with Wan Blacksmith. In short, you two just wait for my notification date, little slug. You just need to go to Tonghishao first. It's best to meet Lu Yuzhou. Just slip away and create a sect. Then the three of us will all is it the suzerain? It's nice to spread the word. By the way, Qin Pingon, it's a joke to invite Li Xing to a wedding. Don't take it seriously, but there is one thing that you must do for me, that is, Ning Yao has to give it to your sister-in-law, be a bridesmaid. I'm not discussing this matter with you. I'm giving you orders and you must do it. Do you hear me?" Qin Ping smiled and nodded. It was rare for Gukin not to overthrow the stage, nodded and promised, "Then I will create a sect as soon as possible." Not counting guest ministers and some anonymous worshippers with concealed identities, the hundreds of genealogy monks placed on the face of Baidi City were divided into two by Jing Juzhong and distributed to two direct disciples. It means that the two sects established by Fu Mo and Gu Kan respectively will share the rich family background that Jing Juzhong has accumulated for 3,000 years. It also means that Gu Kan, who is already full of wings, will suddenly become a prominent figure with the right to speak in a certain continent of Hauran. Lu Xianying asked from the bottom of his heart, "Beta Sheng is splitting up at this juncture. Does that mean that you have been tacitly regarded as Mr. Zheng's close disciple?" Gu Kan shook her head and said very firmly, "I am definitely not Master's closed disciple." Lu Xianying asked curiously, "Does City Lord Bai prefer you more, or does he prefer the first apprentice Fu Mo?" Qin Pingon rolled his eyes. Lu Xianying said angrily, Why, it's wrong for a big brother to care about his little brother? Qin Ping raised his chin. Continue. Gukan took a sip of his drink and said slowly, it's hard to say who is partial to anyone. Fu Mo and I each have their own advantages and disadvantages in cutting up the family property. Master, as a monk, has already calculated very accurately from the quantity to the realm. Except Han Qiao, if color joins my sect, the entire Jinsui city will also be merged into my sect, the two Immortals. Lu Qiqing and Liuli Pavilion follow Fu Mo. And there is an unidentified ascendant cultivator who hides his head and tail. The chief priest of the imperial city. This person will protect the way for the suzerain Fu Mo. The lord of the Emerald City in the wild world is Qingjia, a fairy named Yunhu. She has a lot of high-grade robes including water refining and banana leaf. And Jinsui City itself is a cash cow that can make money flow in. Zhou Xian abducted a fox country from the Su family of Qingfeng City. Jing Juzhong moved the entire Jinsui City in the wild world. This is called a peer. The rest of the Yupu realm and Earth Immortal cultivators have nothing to say. Master believes that their achievements are limited. The only thing I feel regretful about is that I asked my master twice, but I failed to ask for an unknown female cultivator from Baidi City. Her realm is mediocre. The Jade realm, but she has a special status. With her or without her, there is not a small difference between a sect. Lu Xianying clicked his tongue in amazement, filled with envy, and picked up the wine bowl. This company's production is unprecedented, and I'm going to drool when I hear it. I have to drink to suppress my shock. Qin Ping asked with a smile. Is there some kind of innate supernatural power in her? Gukan nodded and said, it's similar to the maid named Ji Qing who is with Du Shanin. Qin Pingon understood instantly and said with regret for Gukan, this must be a pity. Lu Xianying clicked his tongue and said, when you see Qian's eyes open, you will never change your nature. The two ancestral coins of Zweiweiqian in the world are naturally treasured by the Lu family in Iazu. After all, Liu's ancestors made their fortunes from this mine. It is a mystery in what form and posture it appears in the world. According to the inside story leaked to Qin Pingon by the white-haired boy, the ancestral money in the world is in pairs, which means that there are people like Changshu and Jiqing in the world. Lu Xianying asked, do you really want to drink? Qin Pingon shook his head and said, 1 or 2 pots of fairy wine's spiritual energy drizzle can't quench the thirst of a severe drought in the world. Lu Xianying frowned and said, so exaggerated? Qin Pingon said, it's okay, go back to the mountain, just cultivate slowly and you will come back after making up for it. Qin Pingon was a little bit overwhelmed by the Ascension Realm Consummation Ghost's all-out blow, even though he had been prepared for a long time. Not because of the pain of the flesh and body, or even the disorder of the world and the weather caused by the turmoil of the soul, Qin Ping needs to carefully reconcile it, which consumes countless minds. What was really troublesome was the sinister sap that hit Qin Pingon almost depressed, the bird in the cage, just like a hole in the Yellow River cave was pierced by Yes sword. This made Qin Pingon feel lingering fear and fear. The key to such unexpected disasters is that they don't even know the name of the enemy's family, the Daoist name, and the origin of the teacher. Qin Pingon hated him so much that he wanted to pretend to be heroic, drink a few bowls of wine on the table, and let Lu Xianying and Gukan slightly don't worry, I'm afraid of vomiting blood while drinking. If it weren't for the lack of merit and virtue to support him to travel far away in the underworld of Fengdu, Qin Pingon really wanted to take Xiaomo and Xiego to the underworld, dig 3 feet of the ground, and also hunt out that ghost, a candidate for the 14th realm? Lao Tzu came up to you and told you to kill him. However, Qin Pingon knew very well that since this ghost dared to act like this, it would not only be difficult to kill but even more difficult to find. Not wanting to talk about these annoying things, Qin Pingon changed the subject, looked at Gukan and said with a smile, where is that brother Long? Gukan said, I don't know where to go, Chai Bofu is not on the list, I don't know where it was thrown by the master. He is also a wonderful person. When he practiced in Baidi City, Chai Bofu's fall is almost like eating a home-cooked meal. No wonder Qin Pingon asked about this person. Half a fellow? Qin Pingon asked, I heard that you accepted a student? Gukan felt a little embarrassed for the first time. In Friao Island there is a Yeshio in the Jade Ro realm. His name is Huang Huashan. Because of a trivial matter, Gukan has been entangled all the way for more than 2 years. He couldn't beat Gukan with complicated skills and Gukan couldn't kill him at that time. Gukan is extremely patient and has always been with her like a shadow, and she is dedicated to disgusting each other, making them like a pair of idiots who love and hate each other. In the end, the yellow flower god could be described as distraught and indignant. But you let me have a stable meal and a clean shit? In the end, there was really no other way, and Huang Huashan had no choice but to admit defeat, which was an admission of a mistake with Gukin. Gukin said that he wasn't sincere enough and didn't count. Let's continue to reason. Huang Huashan almost collapsed on the spot. Later, the god of yellow flower followed Gukan, performing the disciple ceremony. He changed his body, changed his previous temperament, and became very serious in his actions and words. It is also an anecdote on the mountain. For those who love wine, wine is a thing that can relieve thousands of worries, and wine is a prajna soup that can make people dream of becoming a Buddha. It is rare for Lu Xianyang to talk about his time when he was studying in the Qin Confucian family, and talked about his former classmates. Said that I remember the day before the spring outing in Xianxia one year. There were two poor people in the same room. Their backgrounds were not bad, they were well educated, and their family was strict. Can only buy books. So much so that the two wealthy disciples often laughed at themselves, not wearing silk clothes before the age of 16. They planned to boil a few eggs for food that day, and they boiled water because they didn't know how long it would take to cook, so they poked one of them with chopsticks and waited until it was cooked. I had fun watching Lu Xianyang, who was back at the school. One of them said he was a scholar who was useless, and the other said he was nothing more than that. Later, of these two people, one wrote a book and became a master of the School of Historical Geography, and the other became a well-known Jiran family in Nanpazhuzhu. Unlike Qin Pingon, who drank more and more bored, Lu Xianyang couldn't control his mouth as long as he opened his mouth to drink. He could drink 2 ounces of wine with the voice and vigor of 2 caddies of wine. Qin Pingon got up suddenly and said, "I'm going to meet a friend outside the door, you continue to drink yours." Open the door, the sky is burning with clouds, and in the sunset glow, there is a young woman wearing a plain horseface skirt. I don't know if it's because of a slight application of powder and daisy, sweeping the brows lightly, or because of the clouds lingering on her face, unwilling to leave. It turned out that the female ghost Shui Rui had the courage to come to this alley and pretend to pass by. It didn't seem to matter whether she saw the Taoist Wu Di or not. When the door squeaked and she suddenly saw the strange man in the green shirt, she felt a little flustered, but when she looked again she blinked her long eyes, recognized the man's identity and gave a blessing. "Have you seen Qin? Lord of the Mountain?" Qin Ping smiled and said, "Miss Shui doesn't need to see outsiders, just call me Daoist Wu." Shui Rui didn't know how to answer. Just now she caught a glimpse of the excitement in the hall of the main house. So many guests? Is him after all? As long as he doesn't thank guests behind closed doors and doesn't close the mountains to practice Taoism, no matter where he settles and rests, there will be no white people and everyone in the seat will be luxurious. Except her secluded haunted house? Desolately taught her to often sit on the swing at dusk, waiting for the sound of the wheels outside the wall. Qin Ping said with a smile, "I won't stay here for a long time, I'm going back home soon. Welcome Miss Shui to visit Luopa Mountain when you have time." Shui Rui nodded and smiled, hiding her hands behind her back, her fingers intertwined, trying not to be so nervous so as not to make the two sides look so unfamiliar. Qin Pingon hesitated for a moment and asked, "Miss Shui, I would like to ask, when things happen in the capital, the boy next door will have a career. After that, does Miss Shui want to establish a sect in a certain place in Yushuan Kingdom, or to cooperate with the imperial court? Discuss, seal up a mountain and water god, enjoy the incense and sacrifice? Or go out to travel and relax first and then find a place where you can practice purely?" Shui Rui shook her head and murmured softly, "I didn't think so far." Qin Pingon thought for a while and said with a smile, "The first 2 choices, there is a person in the house, a friend I just met, he happens to be able to help and he can talk to the court of Yushuan Kingdom. Let's talk about the third choice, it's not difficult, I also have friends who are in charge of the 5 Islands faction in Shujian Lake." Although Huang Lai had just stepped down as the national teacher, it was easy to think of helping Shui Rui to deliver a message to His Majesty the Emperor. Lu Xianyang would not let go of this kind of commotion, so he rushed over, leaned against the door and watched with a smile on his face. Gukin was afraid that his dog would not be able to spit out ivory, so she had to follow. Sure enough, dogs can't change eating shit. Lu Xianyang really didn't give Gukin any chance of surprise and soon teased in his heart, "Qin Pingon, you are doing well now, I dare not take it to Luopa Mountain so I have to leave it outside. What about the golden house hiding the beauty?" Then he got an elbow from Gukan and Lu Xianyang immediately bared his teeth. Qin Pingon continued, If you think Shujin Lake is too close, you can go to Qinghu Palace in Tonggishao or Taiping Mountain. They are both good places and have a good family style. Gukin said with a smile. If Miss Shui is willing, she can take a few more steps and go to Fuyao Island in the southwest. It's a trip to the mountains and rivers. There is a sect with a strange name called Househan, which is very easy to find. You can find it if you ask. I am still enshrined in the back mountain, so I can write a letter to help introduce it. Shui Rui smiled and said, Mr. Qin is trying to drive me away? Qin Pingon couldn't help laughing. For a while I didn't know how to explain the reason. If I didn't see the woman in the green skirt in Chongyang, but replaced Shui Rui in front of me, even if Lu Chen's wormwood tree guarded the gate, the consequences would still be unpredictable. With the backflow of the long river, her body can bear the sequelae, and she may even have the opportunity to be a blessing in disguise and turn it into a road benefit. Shui Rui may not be able to withstand this kind of surprise. Regarding many things, Qin Pingon does not think that being bitten by a snake once and being afraid of well ropes for 10 years is a derogatory term. Shui Rui looked at the two people at the door and asked, but Sect Master Lu Gu Xianxia? As a result, both of them were unhappy. Because Shui Rui just said the opposite. Probably because she felt that Lu Zongzhu of Longquan Sword Sect should be a gentle and elegant sword fairy. Gu Ken, the lunatic of Baidi City, is a character with a playful smile, cynical. Qin Ping grinned from ear to ear. Good. Miss Shui's words were so good that they both felt that the two pots were on their heads at the same time. As soon as he opened his mouth, he couldn't help coughing a few times. Qin Pingon quickly clenched his fist against his mouth, stopped laughing, and his face and eyes were still full of smiles. Gukin is okay, just smiled. Lu Xianying said aggrievedly, Miss Shui, we are familiar with each other, but I must say that once you said it, what kind of eyes are there? No wonder you will lure wolves into the house and let Qin Pingon borrow your house. Gukin said something fair. Who knows you well, Miss Shui? And before Gukin finished speaking, Qin Ping kicked him backwards. There was a shoe print on the gown. Gukin smiled and shook the gown. Shui Rui leaned back and saluted slowly. Mr. Qin, I came here today just to say thank you. Don't say favors, especially don't talk to outsiders. Don't forget to receive kindness, it is best to talk more with others. Qin Ping smiled and nodded. Shui Rui thought about it seriously and said, as for whether to stay or not, we will talk about it later. If one day I have an idea, I will definitely not be polite to Mr. Qin. I will send a letter to Luopa Mountain immediately. The one who felt the most regret was not Qin Pingon, but Huang Lai, who listened to the conversation with his ears pricked up in the room. I can't wait to run outside the door and beg her for something. If Shui Rui is really willing to stay in Yushuan Kingdom, no matter if she is creating a sect or seeking to be a landscape empress who builds a shrine and a temple, Huang Lai really just wants to have a word or two with the Emperor Shui Peng. Did Shui Rui, the female ghost, owe the former national teacher Huang Lai a favor? It must not be, but Mr. Qin, the middleman who made the match, owed a favor to a certain Zhong Huang. Does Qin Pingon need to return favors? Of course not, and even if Qin Ping offered it, Huang Lai would never accept it. As long as he didn't accept it, Gu Kan's side would be equivalent to an extra iron coupon of the Alchemy book bestowed by the suzerain, which would be equivalent to an extra gold medal for avoiding death. Huang Lai wondered whether to say hello to the Emperor Shui Peng, and the court secretly helped her a little bit. Gu Kan, who had his back to the main room, said from his heart, Huang Gongfeng, I advise you not to superfluous. Huang Lai, who was seen through his mind, was startled and repeatedly confessed. Shui Rui left the alley, picked up her skirt, and a pair of embroidered shoes, chose a dry place on the street to settle down. Of course she sincerely thanked and respected that Mr. Qin. But for some reason she still felt that Wu Di, a Taoist priest who was not stingy, was more interesting and closer. There is no wine table anywhere in life, but the wine in the glass is always full. Qin Pingon packed some luggage and soft packages and packed them into something close at hand. Of course he didn't forget the fortune-telling booth that could be disassembled and reassembled. You don't have too many skills, and when you go out in the future, in addition to being a burden, you can also return to your old business and set up a stall to make money. Qin Pingon asked, what do you say? Do you go directly to Tonggishao? Or go to Nujiadu and other intercontinental ferries? Gukin said, go to Nujiadu. Lu Xianying asked lazily, how do we go back? The 3-mountain talisman is too precious and it can't be used much, so we need to save some money. If it's just the three of them, it's easy to say, even if you don't need the three mountain talisman or Yujian or Yufeng. Gukin said, I have a Liuxiao boat, the speed is not slow. After leaving the capital we can take the boat back to Nujiadu. Lu Xianying was amazed. This is a good thing, have you heard of it or not, how did you get it? Gukin said, there are several secret warehouses in Baidi City which are unattended. I often go there to relax. One of the secret warehouses used to store treasures is this Liuxiao boat. Anyway, I am idle. Then refine it and bring it out. Lu Xianying was shocked and said, then you are a house thief and City Lord Jing doesn't care? Gukin said, if you don't care then you don't care. Fushu dare? He dare not. Lu Xianying asked, a lot of treasures on the Liuxiao boat? Gukin nodded and said, all of them belong to me. Huang Lai's eyelids trembled as the two parties did not use their hearts in the dialogue. As expected of coming out of Baidi City, the way is really wild. Afterwards they hid their bodies together, hid their whereabouts, and quietly left the capital of Yushuan Kingdom by Yufeng, and came to a secluded mountain in the border of Zhiao Mountain. For the time being, Grandmaster Shen is only in the golden body state and cannot travel far away, so he is the only one who is held by his shoulders and travels far away. Gukin took out a palm-sized pocket fairy from her sleeve, first used secret techniques to break through layers of restrictions, and then threw it into the air. Suddenly it was as big as a normal building ghost hanging in midair. Lu Xianying boarded the Liuxiao boat, which is famous all over the world, and asked tentatively, Sect Master Gu, please ask Mr. Jing, does the old man still accept such unnamed disciples? Gukin sneered and said, is it right to be a godson? Lu Xianying reached out and grabbed Gukan's arm. Apart from City Lord Jing, is there any other way? Gukin raised her arms. Crawl away. Lu Xianying said with a playful smile. Qin Pingon was injured, you feel sorry for you, what kind of hero is taking me out of anger? Qin Pingon asked suspiciously, can you refine such a giant as Luxiazu? Gukin hummed and said, there is a long-lost ancient secret art in Baidi City, which specializes in the practice of material transformation, but the threshold for practicing it is not low. As far as I know, only Han Qiaosi is proficient in this art. After learning this Taoism, she destroyed a lot of utensils on the mountain, and there were more than 30 pieces of magic weapons alone. I was more concerned about this, but I still learned a little superficially. Learn, I will make a copy for you later. Qin Ping waved his hand. Since it is one of the 12 Dao spells that she vowed to learn, if you have learned it, don't spread it to the outside world. Gukin said, didn't you have a business deal with her? It's not impossible to discuss the exchange of money for Taoism. Qin Ping stared and said, they are all people who want to be suzerain and they still don't know the other rules of the family? Do you understand the difference between closeness and closeness? I really think Han Qiaosi won't be sad. After saying a lesson, Qin Pingon went to choose a room to sleep in, let Lu Xianying go out of the boundary of Huashan Mountain, and then woke himself up. Lu Xianying yelled hello and said in anger, it's kind of good intentions but begging and scolding for nothing, some people are suffering. Gu Kan, who was obviously being treated like a donkey with good intentions, let out a snort but his mood improved. Gukan asked Gu Lingyan to drive the Liuxiao boat, and as for Huang Lai and Shen Ku, they could choose a room to rest at will. Lu Xianying always followed behind Gu Kan, which made Gu Kan, who had plans of his own, annoyed. Why don't you just carry a toilet behind my ass? Lu Xianying wrapped his arms around Gu Kan's neck and said with a smile, let's say a few words about ourselves. Gu Kan came to a heavily restricted room, pushed open the door and stood outside. Choose a few for yourself and get out after you finish. I just have one request, and you are not allowed to use the universe in your sleeve. Lu Xianying complained, why did you make such a vulgar brother like you? Wah, I got rich and the house was full of treasures, dazzling, almost blinding Uncle Liu's eyes. Gukin is about to close the door. Lu Xianying hurriedly stretched out his hand against the door and said with awe-inspiring righteousness, you are vulgar, so I will be arrogant? I can't. Sitting on the threshold, Gukin didn't bother to worry about what Lu Xianying would pick, she would take a few and let him go. A bamboo basket of fish, a muntjac leg, a basket of eggs, half a drawer of steamed stuffed buns. When Lu Xianying gave these things to the slugs in Mud Bottle Lane, he didn't even blink his eyes. Entering the house like entering a treasure mountain, Lu Xianying touched this one, rubbed his face against that one, dazzled his eyes. Gukin didn't rush, just sat there patiently. Lu Xianying turned his head and shouted, Gu Zongzhu, can you lend me some things that are close by? If you don't mention this kind of request, you won't be Lu Xianying. Gukin turned a deaf ear to it. Broken my Dao heart. I can't watch it anymore. I really can't watch it anymore. If I watch it again, I will really want to kill people and steal goods. Lu Xianying covered his eyes with one hand and sat down next to Gukin as if to discredit him, the two guards. Gukin said, will you pick it or not? Be careful that I'll say something before it's too late. Lu Xianying smiled and said, forgot? I am different from you and Qin Pingan. When did you worry about making a living? When did you take advantage of the two of you? Gukin nodded. Back then, Qin Pingan's biggest dream was to do business with Lu Xianying and make money together when he grew up. He laid down his hands to do things and let Lu Xianying make up his mind. As for Gukin, it's even simpler. Eating and drinking with the two of them will definitely not starve him. Just lie down and enjoy the blessings. Who made him the youngest one? Lu Xianying carefully took out a jade tablet from his sleeve and handed it to Gukin. Be careful, don't break it, this is a very old item. Gukin took the hand and asked in confusion, give me a congratulatory gift for establishing the sect in advance? Lu Xianying smiled angrily. What the fuck, I'm showing off my family background to you so I can't get back on the table? Gukin asked, is it an ancient cave that is not recorded in the book or a broken blessed land? Lu Xianying smiled and said, it doesn't matter whether it is the cave or the blessed land. Do you have one? Qin Pingan has a lotus root blessed land and I also have a small cave, but Gu Zongzhu, you are a bit shabby. Gukin raised her hand high all of a sudden as if to throw the jade token. Lu Xianying immediately begged for mercy. Don't, brother Gu, I will kneel down for you, old man. Gukin casually tossed the jade tablet back to Lu Xianying. I have never seen anything in the world, but I am so rare. Lu Xianying caught the jade tablet with both hands, took a deep breath and wiped it carefully with his sleeve. The ancient name is Shuishandongshan, the land is not big and the mystery is not small. If it is not compared with Baidi City, the Longquan sword sect now headed by Lu Xianying is actually not poor, the family is not weak, and it is famous in Aquarius continent for its small expenses and large income. As the last sage in charge of the Lizhu cave heaven, Ruan Qiong made a deal with old man Yang and secretly bought a cave sky and a blessed land from the other party. Only about this matter the entire Longquan sword sect, now only 2 people know about it apart from Ruan Taijiang, who went to concentrate on forging iron and swords, and only Lu Xianying, the successor suzerain. Shuitian Cave, also known as Qinyang Cave, is not among the top 10 caves and 36 small caves. Xianxia Blessed Land is a mid-level blessed land, there is no one in it, only mountain spirits, water monsters and plants and flowers. It is really like a paradise. A piece of jade plaque and a piece of inscription. It's not that Qinglong is the water supervisor, but the land becomes the ravine and the water becomes the field. On one side of the seal engraving on the side says, the years and the world are rushing, and there are many hazes here. Blessed land lies in people, heaven and earth treasures, caves and heavens lie in heaven, and Taoism lies in the hidden spirit. According to Ruan Qiong's plan, Lu Xianying will take care of the paddy fields and caves and open them up as private dojos. Whether the suzerain ruined it or made it richer, it depends on their own fate. Ruan Qiong doesn't care about these things. In the market, children and grandchildren have their own blessings, let alone cultivating Taoism on the mountain and becoming gods. The Yanxiao Blessed Land was given to Donggu as the first disciple, but in this way what should be given to Zhu Haifeng Su Xiaoqiao and Heng Chaifeng Xialing, who are both direct descendants, became a headache. Especially when Su Xiaoqiao accepted Li Xinyuan, a direct disciple, Ruan Qiong became even more worried. For a sect to have a paradise and a blessed place at the same time is a beautiful thing that everyone dreams of. Before the 2 juniors on the mountain Longquan Jianzong and Luopashan, only Shengazong in Aquarius continent could accomplish this feat. Famous cave. The beauty of the cave lies in some kind of unexpected joy that can't be met but cannot be sought. For example, certain Dao breaths that come from nowhere and are completely traceless. Another example is that the fragments of the golden body washed and precipitated by the long river of time may even pop out a natural and flawless ancient treasure tempered by time. Therefore, as long as a monk owns a cave, it is equivalent to an extra to appreciate the meal golden rice bowl to eat. Lu Xianying said, in this paddy field cave there is another magical effect. It is a way I realized not long ago. Sitting on the edge of the field, looking at the reflection in the water and then visualizing myself, it is very suitable for practicing swords in dreams. You will get twice the result with half the effort. Taijiang Wan guessed that Old Man Yang has a better treasure which can be matched with my ancestral sword scripture, but Old Man Yang was reluctant to take it out. If I had known earlier that I would become the second suzerain of Longquan sword sect. The backyard of the Yang family medicine store is my second home. Gukin smiled and said, what are you regretting? You just need to go and establish a good relationship with Li Huai, and there may be unexpected gains. Lu Xianying rubbed his chin. I'm not familiar with him. Gukin said, Qin Pingon knows him very well. Lu Xianying laughed loudly. You are so jealous it makes no sense. Gukin asked, have you heard the illusion of Ren Jiabao mirror? Lu Xianying nodded and said, when the Qin Confucian family was studying, I glanced at a certain strange book and didn't pay much attention to it. It seems that it is called Fei Jing and it was judged as ancient by knowledgeable people. Forged by a Daoist? Why are you asking this? Gukin gave a thumbs up and pointed to the room. It's just stored inside. Lu Xianying rubbed his hands together and said, Brother Gu is kind. Gukin said, Master said that Credit Moon has a good history, and she has the most hope of becoming that Mingyue predecessor. Lu Xianying reprimanded immediately, presumptuous. There are no rules. You can call your sister-in-law whatever you want? Gukin remained silent. Lu Xianying was silent for a moment then said calmly, she is what she is, there is no need to become anything. She wants to, I will help her. If she is not willing, no one can force her to do anything, and no one should talk to me about benevolence and morality. The importance and the like. Jing Juzhong is no exception. Gukin said with a smile. It can be seen that Master just kindly reminded you to plan ahead and not be kept in the dark when things come to an end. Lu Xianying immediately clasped his fists and said in a loud voice, Mr. Zheng is very righteous, the boy is deeply impressed. Gukin frowned. Lu Xianying shivered with a strange expression on his face. Sweared, I didn't call Jing Juzhong by his name from the beginning to the end. Gukin smiled and said, why, Master chatted with you? Lu Xianying said seriously, Mr. Jing praised me for being young and promising, responsible and ambitious. Gukin smiled and said, it's as long as you are happy. He stood up. Just not closed. Lu Xianying stood up and asked strangely, the door is just open so you're not afraid of attracting thieves? Take precautions against everything, house thieves are hard to guard against. I Lu Xianying have a limited mind. When I can't control my hand, don't blame me for not seeing you. Just learn from Qin Pingon and just accept it. Gukin went straight away and said with a smile, it's all your belongings so I don't know how to pick and choose and borrow something close to me. Is it fun? Is it embarrassing or not? Lu Xianying was stunned, stomped his feet lightly and asked with a tentative smile, could it be? Gukin said bluntly, it's yours too. Lu Xianying raised his arms and shouted, Brother Gu is not stingy. Gukin turned her back to that guy, raised her arm and stretched out her hand and raised a middle finger. Some people don't ask for a full glass of wine but ask for a refill. Arriving at the formation hub of the Liuxia boat, Gu Lingying, who was in charge of the helm, changed into a new attire with snow-white skin and long black clothes. She looked forward with beautiful eyes and asked, Master, I really think about it, the location of the sect is Fuyao Island? Today Gukin is rarely willing to chat with her a few more words. Fiazhu belongs to a new chessboard and a new chess game. In fact, it is better than Tongyi's Hao. The sect was built in the barbaric world, Fu Mo can do it and Gukin, who is in the Jadeite state, is not qualified for the time being, so I won't make my face swollen and fat. What's more, Master handed over the entire Jinsui city to me, which is also a kind of express persuasion. Don't be too high-handed, otherwise Master moved Jinsui city to Haoran Tianxia, and I turned around and put it back to wild desolate Tianxia. What's the matter? Besides, I didn't waste my time in Fiazhu. There are many people who call me arrogant, but not many people say that I have a bad stomach. Even if I heard some of what I did in the Shujian Lake of Aquarius Island in the early years, I still feel nothing. Probably because I feel that compared with the wild monsters, the raging rampage in Fiazhu is indeed far behind. Chunqing, Su Bai and the others have to accept my love, and they can no longer regard me as a vicious person. In fact, if there is no Chao Ci, we are very likely to the whole army will be wiped out, but because he is Chao Ci, many people take it for granted deep in their hearts. It is naturally true to be grateful to Chao Ci, but it is not necessarily true to say how grateful they are to him. This is Chao Ci eating Chao Ci. What a loss. Gu Ken, who was not expected, took advantage of Gu Ken instead. She smiled and asked. The calculation is such a calculation, the reason is such a reason. Does the young master have any selfish intentions? Gukin nodded and said, yes. She curiously said, I would like to hear the details. Gukin said with a smile. Fuyao Island seems to lack a character like Qin Pingon in Aquarius Island. Gu Lingying pretended to have suddenly realized that she was as innocent as a young girl with blushing cheeks and said shyly, Young master, I have a small wish. If I can enter the Ascension realm, can you grant me one thing? Gukin smiled and said, as long as you enter the Ascension realm, you'll just lie still and ride and gallop as you please. She said with a serious look, it's done, don't go back on your word. Gukin nodded and said, you remember to learn a few more Taoist art in the room. This made her a little discouraged. Haoren Juzhou Zhongtishenzhou, there are too many experts, no one dares to say that he is the leader of the fairy master on Izhou Mountain. Even if Fulu Yushuan ranks among the 14th realm, it is still the same. Even the most proud Bai Yi in the world back then he didn't think so. But the other 8 continents are very talkative. For example, the real Huolong of Patafeng is recognized as the leader of both black and white in Beiju Luzhou. Lu Jiubao of Ias Hao replaced Wei Shi, the master of the 72 peaks in the early years. Nan Pasizhou used to be Qin Chunan, the mellow scholar who carried the sun and the moon on his shoulders. It's just that now he has become Qi Tingji of the Dragon Elephant Sword sect. Tonggi's Hao used to be Du Mao from Tonggizong's Ascension realm, and now he is Wei Ying, the great sword immortal of Yuguazong. Qinggong Taibao Jingha's status as the leader on the mountain on the bright side of Luxiazu is also false. The real owner of Qinggong Mountain is Qin Qinglu. Fuyao Continent and Jinjia Continent, not to mention the leaders of any of them. In Aquarius Continent, Lu Yen, whose Taoist name is Chunyang, his whereabouts are uncertain, and his reputation is still unknown, so he doesn't support the scene, it belongs to the inside-outside of Face. If you don't talk about cultivation and just talk about Face, maybe someone who is the last hidden official of the Sword Qi Great Wall and serves as Dallas' new national teacher is still okay? Gukin wrapped his arms around his sleeves and said, learn Taoism in Baidi City, and be number 1 in Fuyao Island. She blinked her eyes and said in a soft voice, young master, it seems that you are not crazy enough, you are just the number 1 person in Fuyazu. Gukin twitched the corners of her mouth and her face was full of presumptuous smiles. One day in the future Zi Wuming, the Daoist, will feel that it is a great honor for her to decide to be Gukan's personal maid, especially you. The most correct choice I have made in my life, bar none. She stretched out her hand and patted her conscientious towering chest. Master, to be honest, I don't think it's a feat, it's far from that kind of madness. Gukin crossed his hands and fingers in his sleeves and said in a deep voice, in the future, no matter how far Qin Pingon walks on the road, I will walk side by side with him, and no matter how high he will stand on the top of the mountain in the future, Gukin will always stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Gu Lingyan narrowed his eyes with a smile. Young master, are you confident that one day in the not-too-long future, you will reach the 14th realm? The young man in Confucian shirts smiled softly and said, well, wait and see. On the top of a mountain in the wilderness, an old man wearing a bamboo crown looked up at the sky, opened his mouth wide, made no sound, just beat his chest lightly repeatedly. It seems that if it is not the case it will be out of breath. The old man wept with joy, with tears running down his face, silently feeling the rich luck rolling in from the heaven and the earth. 14 This is 14. There is no unparalleled road in the sky, and it has been 10,000 years and finally entered this realm. When Qin Qinglu visited Baidi City earlier, he had a heart-to-heart chat with his good apprentice Jing Juzhong. Which wild monsters involved are most likely to take that step and enter the 14th realm first? According to Jing Juzhong's calculations, the answer he gave was extremely unexpected. The order of priority was Wang Youwu, Ligo, Baijing, and Wumingshi with the Taoist name Tiger. Just as Jing Juzhong expected, the first great monster in the wild world to succeed in the way was precisely this Wang Youwu who was least favored by others. Wang Youwu didn't care to wipe away her tears. She stood up slowly, clasped her fist high and said loudly, show me thank you here. In the world of grandeur, in the Liu's ancestral hall in A Island, the 4 waters returned to the courtyard, and Lu Kaishan stretched out his hand to catch the rain. This station has been standing for many days. It is only natural for merchants to make money. And Lu Jibao's road to unity can be divided into 2 veins, one of which is relatively simple, which is to spend money. successfully merged into the 14th realm. It is no longer impossible to win back the word north for Ia's Hao from Beiju Luzhou. In Qingming Tianxia, the co-suzerain of Liangjing Mountain and Dachao sect, and the Taoist companion of Chaoga, Su Jun has repeatedly read the Su Wugui, taught by Yu Jinglu these days. When Su Wan turned his head and looked out the window, it was already dawn. When he put down the book, Su Wan was in the 14th realm somehow. So the first 14-level ghost appeared in the world. Su Jun couldn't laugh or cry at this. In the Western Buddhist kingdom, Pang Yuanji, a sword repairman from the Great Wall of Sword Qi, has been following a disheveled monk who seems to have never been shaved, and together he has sculpted 500 statues of arhats for the temple. In addition, monks will also sit cross-legged in the corridor outside the hall, with a focused expression, and carve a Buddha statue of unknown material. For some reason, the monks cast statues inside the temple during the day and carved statues outside the temple at night. Pang Yuanji also asked the abbot of the temple, "How many years has this monk who never spoke a word persisted?" The old abbot only said many, many years. Pang Yuanji asked again, "Is he practicing closed mantra?" The old abbot said that if it wasn't for the support of the temple's great array, every tiny thought of that person would be thunder rolling from the sky. Pang Yuanji asked again, "He has been carving Buddha statues outside the temple for so long, why has he not opened his face for the Buddha statues?" The old abbot said that he was still looking for his true colors, and the Buddha statue he carved was himself. Pang Yuanji couldn't help asking, "Is it so difficult to become a Buddha?" The old abbot said that he was afraid that it would be even more difficult. Pang Yuanji finally asked a question, "What hair do monks have?" The old abbot said that it was his obsession that he couldn't let go of, and the more he cut, the longer he cut. It has been raining heavily for several consecutive days, and the sky and the earth are as dark as night at noon, and it will not stop for a few more days. Today Pang Yuanji sat near the monk and usually carved statues outside the hall at night. Did the monk break the precepts in his heart? It's not that Pang Yuanji didn't think about copying the words from the book and wanted to make mistakes, hoping to help the monk a little bit. For example, why bother to light lamps during the day? Why bother to light candles during the day? After hearing such words, the monk would stop the carving knife in his hand, raise his head and thank Pang Yuanji with a smile. It was only later that Pang Yuanji learned from the old abbot that monks had already read all the Buddhist scriptures in the world, and as long as they were recorded in the register, they could see everything at a glance. Pang Yuanji was startled suddenly. It turned out that the monk put down the carving knife in his hand and crushed the wooden statue. With his hands empty, he sat cross-legged, shook his head and murmured, "It won't work after all." Pang Yuanji seemed to be affected by the sadness of the monk, and this sword cultivator who had been away from home for many years, also felt a little depressed. The monk looked at the dim rain curtain outside the corridor, and soon felt relieved that he could not become a Buddha, and he had nothing to do. He clasped his hands together and bowed his head to sing a Buddha. The young monk stood up slowly, turned around and walked towards the main hall, stepping over the threshold with one foot. Pang Yuanji has no reason to recall that in his hometown in the past, it is said that it was a story written by Xu Miao himself. Only Qin Pingon read it and said it was well written, but Xu Miao said that he had nothing to do and wasted his time. He wrote it casually. But after the young hermit had said so, the summer palace began to applaud, making Xu Miao so sad that he regretted that he had come up with a story that had no end at that time. Pang Yuanji now only remembers a few conversations above, which are deep in his memory and unforgettable to this day. In the book, a monk whose ending seemed destined to become a Buddha asked a disciple beside him who seemed destined not to become a Buddha, "Disciple, while there is still light, we might as well continue on our way. One more journey of mountains and rivers is one journey." "Master, there is no reason not to walk at night during the day. Why not take a rest first? It will not be too late to start tomorrow morning." "Disciple, when we go west to learn Buddhist scriptures, when do you think we will arrive at Dalian Mountain?" "Master, you have grown from a child to an old age, and no matter how young you are, it will still be difficult for you to travel around like this. As long as you understand, when you see your nature in your heart, turn your mind back to the place where you look back, that is to see the Buddha in Lingshan." The young monk withdrew his foot, turned back to the corridor and walked directly down the steps into the rain. Every time the monk took a step, his hair fell down by itself, and a golden lotus flower appeared under his feet, shining brightly. When he stands still, the rain stopped. Rest is Bodhi. Turning around is a Buddha. A rainbow-like sword light came from the vicinity of Fuyao continent in Haoran Tianxiao, and cut through the gap of darkness with a sharp sword. The woman looked around and saw Zhou Qinghuang holding the artifact, and she went straight to the dojo abandoned by the Ascension Realm consummated ghost. The boundary of Fengdu is vast and boundless, and it is very different from Yangjian. It is not only separated by mountains and rivers, but there are hidden vortexes of time and rivers everywhere. Ning Yao didn't talk to Zhou Qinghuang and the Hades of Fengda's halls, but just stretched out a finger and stroked it between the eyebrows, dripping with blood like opening the eyes of the sky. She didn't speak harshly to the candidate ghost of the 14th realm, but just slashed away with a sword, and the heavens and the earth were densely packed, covered with golden sword light like trees and flowers. The inexplicable enmity between the enemy and us is more than thousands of miles apart. The radiant sword light passes through countless places where time swirls, and the sword light follows like a shadow and ghosts can't hide. They are all ghosts. If you still want to die, then let you die again. With just one strike, the ghost's head was chopped off. It was unclear whether it was swordplay, sword intent, or kendo. Ning Yao looked indifferent, just wiped away the blood on the center of his eyebrows. The sword light dragged a long golden river, and the long sword returned to its sheath clangingly. Zhong Kuei, who was wearing a bright red robe, came here, stood beside Zhou Qinghuang and the others, pretending to be calm, and laughed. She is Qin Pingan's Daoist companion. Everyone knows about this matter, so there is no need for you, Zhong Kuei, to explain who she is to us. Ning Yao pretended not to hear Zhong Kuei's words and apologized with his fists together. Try not to be an example. When it was confirmed that Ning Yao had left and returned to Haoran, Zhong Kuei said solemnly, Ning Yao is still my sister-in-law. I have received their wedding invitations, but you haven't. Zhou Qinghuang couldn't help but asked, why didn't I hear the old scholar talk about this? General Fan nodded and said, that little nerd Pei Qian, as Qin Pingan's founding disciple, doesn't even know about it. Brother Zhong Kuei, you can do it. Zhong Kuei showed no embarrassment at all. Holding his belt with both hands, he just said to himself, you may not be clear about my friendship with Qin Pingan. At their wedding banquet, Ning Yao had to toast me more than a glass of wine. Cups are too few, 3 cups is not much. Zhou Qinghuang asked, one mouthful of Qin Ping's and Ning Yao's, do you really think they can't hear you? Zhong Kuei immediately shut up. Previously on the 100,000 Mountains, the old blind man told Gontang that there would be a lot of water among the monks in the new 14th realm in the future, but Ning Yao was an exception. At that time, Gontang was actually skeptical, thinking that the old blind man was partial to Ning Yao, so he set a scene. If this general priest of Luapa Mountain had seen this scene with his own eyes, he would probably know that the words of the old blind man were not worth the slightest amount of water in essence. There are 14 realms in the world. Ning Yao casually chopped and flew up. Sword of Coming Chapter 1102. A fast-moving Liuxiao boat, the mountains, rivers and earth are spread out like a magnificent picture scroll. As soon as the ferry left Beiyue, Lu Xianying shouted for Qin Pingan. Qin Pingan, who was sleeping on the table, stood up and called out to the god of night tour several times in his heart, but he didn't answer, so he had no choice but to walk out of the room, came to the bow and called Wei Bo by his name. Wei Bo soon appeared on the boat. In fact, when he heard the name of the god, Wei Bo immediately breathed a sigh of relief in Piyun Mountain. For Qin Ping's revenge that has been brewing for many years, especially the one against Ma Kushuan Fengshen, because Wei Bo is in the Shinto, he is more worried about this than Luopashan, such as the old cook in Jing Dafeng. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is worried. Qin Pingan had already taken off his boots and sat cross-legged on the bow of the boat, waving a vermilion gourd. He didn't drink but just listened to the sound of the wine sloshing. Relieved, Wei Bo leaned back against the railing and asked curiously, did the Jisa Peak Sword House receive the letter from the Flying Sword of the Dali Punishment Department? Qin Pingan said, got it, I've read it, I'm busy with business so I don't bother to reply. Wei Bo was furious. Just because you didn't reply, the entire Dali Criminal Department had to carefully figure out what you, the national teacher, were thinking, and even His Majesty the Emperor had to ask the Ministry of Rights to send a message to Pyanshan, so that he had to go to the Yamen of the Ministry of Punishment himself. What kind of thing is this? Isn't the Emperor in a hurry for the eunuchs? Qin Pingan squeezed out a smiling face, clasped his fists and shook a few times and apologized. One family doesn't talk about 2 families. Wei Bo asked, how to arrange them? Qin Pingan obviously had a plan in mind and said, For the time being, let's put these 16 people on that jumping fish mountain. Whether they are warriors or monks, they are all on the same mountain. After 1 or 2 years, if we really send another group sword cultivator, it's still the same, there is no need to send it to the sword worship platform. The jumping fish mountain is not a big place, but it's not a big deal to just throw 30 people in. If I remember correctly, there are actually many ready-made buildings in the mountain, large and small houses. There are more than 100 rooms, which is enough. Moreover, it is close to Luoba Mountain, and I may also open up Fiolu as a personal dojo. In fact, it is easy to choose a person to teach boxing. Xing Dafeng has been teaching boxing in the Cold Palace for many years in Wuxia Xianxia. But the choice of the preacher is a little embarrassing. Of course Qin Ping can teach, but it is definitely not suitable. After all, it's not the Great Wall of Sword Qi. On Houran Xianxia's side, whether it's cultivating Taoism or learning boxing, if the starting point is too high, it's not all good for these 16 fledglings. As for the white-haired boy who now serves as the score editor of Luopa Mountain, in fact she is a scholarly celestial being, not an exaggeration at all. She can also teach. But her status is special and it is still inappropriate. Wei Bo took out a booklet from his sleeve, which recorded the detailed files of the 16 people. Never thought that Qin Pingon shook his head and said, "I won't watch it." Normally Wei Bo would complain a few words like throwing away the shopkeeper as an addict, but seeing Qin Pingan's haggard face at this moment, Wei Bo endured it and let it go. Qin Pingan said, "In addition to Xing Dafeng being responsible for teaching boxing, you can also let Sun Yuanji be a deputy. Teaching boxing for others and feeding boxing for others is actually a kind of learning boxing in itself." Wei Bo froze for a moment, nodded and smiled. "Good idea." Wei Bo said, "Both Lu Yong and Jing Qingjia are in the mountains." Qin Ping asked, puzzled, "What is Master Lu doing?" Wei Bo said, "Help Zhao Zhu ask you Luopa Mountain for a guest status, the kind that has a seat in the Patriarch Hall of Jisei Peak." Qin Pingon said helplessly, "This also requires Master Lu to travel across continents and go to Luopa Mountain in person? Is this a special trip to congratulate you and give you gifts?" Wei Bo laughed it off. Qin Pingon said softly, "She has an extra surname. Guling Yu Jing Qingjia. For the monks of the wild monster race, adding a surname to themselves is no joke. Her Taoist name is Yuanhu, and her nickname is Wu Hua Shuli. In the wild world she is one of the few monks in the upper 5 realms who does not like fighting by nature, and of course she is not really good at fighting." Wei Bo laughed and said, "According to her, it is to recognize the ancestors with Mr. Xiaomo. Another thing is to find Gu Ken to return to the clan." Qin Pingon asked a strange question, "Did she go up the mountain alone?" Wei Bo was puzzled but didn't bother to ask, "Just one person." However, anyone who is in the Jade Roar realm will almost always have the means in his sleeve. It's just that how many people and how many things can be loaded depends on the skill level. Qin Pingon didn't ask any more questions. Because there is a secret matter that can be big or small. When Qin Pingon was guarding the city alone, there used to be a chariot with a group of wild female cultivators, Yingying and Yan, all the way north, just to catch a glimpse of the young hermit from a distance. Among the chariots, apart from the descendants of the great demon official title, there was a genealogy nun who was born in Jinsui City. It seemed that she was the most important direct disciple of the city lord Yuanhu, and she had all the true inheritance. Wei Bo asked, "Do you want me to chat with Tong Wenchang?" Qin Ping smiled and said, "No, Tong Shinjun and I have a better relationship than you and him." Wei Bo laughed and said, "Then blame me for being sentimental." Without waiting for Qin Shanju to explain a few words, the night wandering returned to Piyun Mountain. Qin Pingon returned to the house resentfully, took out 3 gold and fine copper coins from his sleeve, placed them lightly on the table and lined them up one by one. An inch of time is worth an inch of gold, and an inch of gold cannot buy an inch of time. At the foot of the mountain, this is a word of encouragement to learn. On the mountain there is no deep meaning. This gold is gold and copper coins. Old Master Yu was indeed vigorous and resolute in his work. After attending the Confucian Temple sealing ceremony in Piyun Mountain, he returned to the Tianwai Xinghe dojo. He came to Luopa Mountain with 1,000 gold and fine copper coins, and half lent them to Qin Pingon. Among them, the loaned 500 coins did not charge interest and he could pay them back at any time. In particular, Zhou Xian took the initiative to waive the 300 debts that Tianwai had lent to Qin Pingon earlier. Then from the 1,500 pieces that Jing Juzhong said, The real gap that Qin Pingon needs to improve the rank of Feijian is actually very small, only 200 pieces. And that doesn't include the bag of gold and copper coins that Lu Su gave away. It's just that those 36 gold and fine copper coins just happen to make up a set of 36 heavenly gangs of the Big Dipper Zhongxing, which is extremely rare and can be called invaluable. If Qin Ping just refined it into the water of the long river of time, it would be too violent. But it can be refined into a large formation that does not need to invite the gods to come down to the truth. 36 generals are in charge of sitting on the banks of the long river of time. He also earned a considerable amount of gold and copper from Yu Shiwu, which could have filled the gap. But since the two sides became allies temporarily, Qin Pingon didn't have the nerve to stay, and Yu Shiwu refused to accept it at first. Said it was useless. Qin Pingon tried to persuade him and Yu Shiwu finally took it back. Thinking about it now, it really is that he is not good at learning and he didn't really understand the essence of Huolong Daoist business classics. When doing business with people, you can't be too thin-skinned. In fact, in the previous battle with Ma Kushuan, the body of the fake Zhou Mi was made of gold and copper coins. 1,000? 2,000? Where did Ma Kushuan get so many gold and copper coins? Qin Pingon never asked from the beginning to the end of the fight. In fact, after Ma Kushuan was beheaded with a sword, this guy even gave up his soul at the last moment, obviously wanting to keep all these gold, essence and copper coins in that cage. Whether it was a relic that Ma Kushuan couldn't take away, or a spoil that was better than a game, in short, Qin Pingon confiscated it. Instead, Qin Pingon helped Ma Kushuan open up a new path with these remaining gold, fine and copper coins, protecting part of his soul and reincarnating together, and also helped Ma Kushuan with this body in this life. And with the divine way of the old heaven has completely disregarded the relationship. Qin Pingon separated his mind, entered the small world of the bird in the cage, and came to the arch bridge at the foot of the mountain at the ruins of the Immortal Mansion, and his mind merged with the young Taoist priest. The three figures arrived together and Yu Shiwu asked directly, "What's going on?" In addition to Yu Shiwu, there is also Xiaoxing, a barbaric female cultivator, and Yu Qing, a cook in Moss House or Lingling, the former gongsun of Cherry Tsing-yi. Obviously not only Yu Shiwu, they were also curious about why there was such a big commotion. There was a scene of heaven and earth falling apart. In the fight with Ma Kushuan, Qin Pingon was worried that there would be side issues, so he detained the three Yu Shiwu here, making them temporarily lose their authority to freely travel between different worlds. Qin Pingon didn't explain the reason in detail, but just told Yu Shiwu the general result. Yu Shiwu was speechless and then murmured, it's okay, it's the best. That Xiaoxing wanted to ridicule with yin and yang, how to achieve a great cause with a soft heart. But before she could speak, he fell into the long river in an instant and almost drowned. Gongsun Lingling was quite relieved by this. The mad woman was finally a villain who will be tortured by the villain. The next moment, Xiaoxing, who had recovered his freedom, came to Gongsun Lingling out of thin air, rubbed against her and then clung to her. At the back, Xiaoxing stretched out a white lotus-like arm at the same time, around Gongsun Lingling's waist, and suddenly lifted it up a little and was about to grab a heavy weight on his chest. The young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown frowned slightly. Xiaoxing stopped his hands, tiptoed, leaned back, sat on the bridge railing, stretched out his hand to caress the top of a watchtower, and said with a charming smile, "It's about the same size." Qin Ping said if he didn't hear it, "Many phantom worlds are seriously damaged and I will have to work hard to repair them." Xiaoxing's eyes were hot, and he looked at the dress under the waist of the cook, which was bulging out. The curves were amazing and full. She stretched out her finger to her scarlet lips and said delicately, "My lord, the servant and the why don't you discuss something, why don't you give her to me, and I'll be with you with all my heart, and it won't take long to take care of her and make her docile." Qin Pingon narrowed his eyes and remained silent. While the sky and the earth were dark and unclear, a bright red color oozes out. Xiaoxing immediately knew how powerful he was, and kept silent like a cicada, not daring to make another mistake. Heaven and man are connected. If Qin Pingon is a well-deserved god here, then his mood ups and downs will tell the world with different celestial phenomena. Qin Ping looked at Gongsun Lingling. "In the future, if she dares to pester you again and delay your progress in creating a world full of gold and color, I will let her learn how to write the word regret." Gongsun Lingling said, "I can work here willingly, but I need a salary that has nothing to do with fairy money." Qin Pingon asked curiously, "Tell me about it." Gongsun Lingling said, if you can guarantee that she won't pester me any longer, I hope you can give Xiaoxing an extra in her crotch under the premise of keeping Xiaoxing's appearance and figure unchanged. Xiaoxing smiled flamboyantly, not afraid at all. At that time I will not wear clothes all day long, and it doesn't matter if I don't touch your body, just walk the bird. Qin Pingon was speechless. Yu Shiwa's scalp was even more numb. Gongsun Lingling said, then let me change my request. Let me produce more of this thing and let her have a time every day that she can't help herself. I will kill her. Qin Pingon said helplessly, you all go to see the doctor. Before that you should be busy with your own business and don't meet again. I will help you set up a layer of restriction which is thousands of miles away. Yu Shiwu was dumbfounded and terrified. Xiaoxing covered his mouth and smiled coquettishly. Yu Qing, sooner or later you will not be able to bear the loneliness, take the initiative to have with me. Qin Pingon remembered something and said, Gongsun Lingling, I just met Xiao Pu and Lu Taoji in the Chongyang Temple in the capital. When the time is right I can help you restore your identity as Cherry Tsing Yi. Gongsun Lingling kept silent, clenched her fists and just nodded. Qin Pingon said, Yu Shiwu, let's talk while walking. Yu Shiwu wished he could get away from those two girls and follow Qin Pingon up the Shinto path. On both sides of the mountain road, there was still a scene of dead bodies hanging with horizontal swords. Compared to Xiaoxing and Gongsun Lingling, Yu Shiwu was the last one to enter Qin Pingan's state of mind dojo. After he became more and more familiar with the foundation of this place, he admired Qin Pingan's construction methods more and more. He was amazed and eye-opening. Especially when Qin Ping handed him the key and key, Yu Shiwu finally understood why Xiaoxing would describe everything in the world so quickly. I thought she was proficient in this way, due to her extraordinary talent. It turned out that Qin Pingon had already laid the foundation. Xiaoxing and Yu Qing, all they needed to do was select the components and assemble them. For example, in a strange land that seems to be the source of all laws, there are countless buildings of various types, dotted all over the world in an orderly manner. Yu Shiwu and them can drive something at will. They can shrink it as small as a mustard seed or expand it like a star. It all depends on their own wishes. Just talking about one of the Taoist temples, there are 62 Taoist temples and 81 temples as manuscripts. The key is that each has its own characteristics. For example, the statues of the 24 heavens borrowed from Tifo Temple, the statues of Lingguan in Lingxiao Temple, the murals of the Chaoyuan dynasty in Dechunyang Longevity Palace, the Linggu Temple at the gate of Guanshan Gate on horseback, and the lifelike 500 wooden sculptures in Jingxi Temple in Namping Mountain. Arhit. In addition, there are Taoist temples and temples that remove all the characteristics of the two base books, similar to the carved copper coins made by the government. The dismantled objects are even more diverse, such as plaques, couplets, statues, murals, algae wells, oil lamps, pillars, mortise and tenon, bricks and stones. They are all classified into categories, assigned high and low levels, and arranged according to heavenly stems and earthly branches. It is not just a simple patchwork, superposition and combination, but an institutional system similar to Confucianism in a broad sense. Just the law is not enough to do it yourself. The inner sage will drive the outer king. A building as a whole can be disassembled into hundreds, thousands or even tens of thousands of fragmented and small parts, and the three of them can use them directly. That's why Xiaoxing was created so quickly. Now the few of them, in terms of increasing the number of things in the world, are of course doing addition, but in terms of difficulty, they are doing subtraction. Such whimsy, such ingenuity. Yu Shiwu was no longer in admiration or awe, but an instinctive fear from the bottom of his heart. In addition, there is still a clear spring on the top of the mountain. The aura is as thick as spring water, and it looks like a secluded pool. Anyone who feels tired can come here to drink water directly, meditate and breathe, rest and rejuvenate and replenish spiritual energy. According to what Xiaoxing said, so much aura of heaven and earth is equivalent to the aura reserve of a cultivator in the Ascension realm. At the top of the mountain, where the green bricks were paved, Qin Pingon walked to the side of the pool and said for no reason, Ma Kuxuan is a smart man and he is even more awkward. Regarding his natal flying sword, Ma Kuxuan had already learned it himself in the Dada River. But Zhou Mi, who was invited by Ma Kuxuan to ask God, didn't even know about it. In fact, there are many people who like to be awkward with themselves, with others and with the world. For example, Lu Xianyang never likes to say sorry to others. Another example is that Song Jisun is similar. Many times he wants to ease the relationship with his neighbors, but he is unwilling to speak up. Maybe Ma Kexuan's awkwardness is that he refuses to talk to anyone well and refuses to ask for help? Yu Shiwu couldn't guess why Qin Pingon said this. Qin Pingon did not continue to talk about this topic. Yu Shiwu asked, Qin Pingon, do you really need our external forces? Qin Pingon said firmly, of course. Yu Shiwu asked, why? Qin Pingon said, let a person eat braised pork all the time 3 meals a day. It's okay to not eat it. How does it taste? Does it feel good? Yu Shiwu smiled and said, of course it's uncomfortable. Qin Pingon said, in the same way. No matter how exquisite the land, mountains, rivers and various buildings built by me, they can surpass you in everything, everyone and everyone. You only need to look at them for a long time. There will be a feeling of boredom and even nausea. This kind of intuition does not make sense. So I need a few of you. Yu Shiwu sighed and said, understood. Years ago I was pursuing the realm of no mistakes. But one day it was so precious to find some wrongs. Qin Pingon said slowly, someone needs to replace this world and make mistakes all the time. The more mistakes there are, the more real and credible this world will be. Yu Shiwu admired, it's suddenly clear. If he could really get rid of that calamity, Yu Shiwu really wanted to go to Luopa Mountain to seek a place even as a gatekeeper. Qin Ping said with a smile, it is more difficult to be the gatekeeper of our Luopa Mountain than to have a seat in the Patriarch Hall of Jisa Peak. Yu Shiwu felt helpless. Qin Ping stretched out a palm and said with a smile, those gold and copper coins that are temporarily entrusted to you? Yu Shiwu couldn't stop laughing angrily. Obviously it was returned to the original owner, so why did it become a thing for safekeeping? If you cut a path on the road, just say it. If you robbed money, why bother talking about borrowing money? Qin Pingon kept his posture unchanged, nodded and said, grab money. Yu Shiwu took out a money bag from his sleeve and slapped it heavily on someone's palm. Take them all, more than 230 coins. Qin Pingon thanked him. Yu Shiwu shook his head. Qin Pingon asked, you Daoist, do you want to see the truth that is not the whole picture? Answer after thinking about it. Yu Shiwu said without hesitation, look. Why don't you look? I saw a Dao tree standing in the center of the world, with countless almost smallest ones hanging there. Yu Shiwu was stunned and speechless, only dumbfounded. He was really shocked by the scene in front of him. Feels magnificent and amazing but also creepy and shuddering. Whether this Qin Pingon is ambitious, in short he clearly wants to rebuild the world. And completely confuse the boundaries between true and false and real. What you see when you look at the flowers on horseback is scribbled after all. And you often know what it is and don't know why. Many truths in the world that have revealed the answers to the mysteries, whether they are still deceptions or are already facts, will always make people feel just so. But when Qin Pingon only opened the prelude to the whole picture of the truth, Yu Shiwu was already unstable. Qin Pingon, who is still dressed as a Taoist priest at the moment, laughed at himself. There is an impure way to go if you are not pure. A mustard seed returned to Wuxia's real body, and Qin Pingon reached out to put his hand between his eyebrows. After a while he leaned on the back of his chair and let out a breath of foul air. Qin Ping took out a yellowed book from his sleeve, put it gently on the table and opened a page casually, which recorded a technique that the higher the monk's vision, the more he valued it. The heaven and the earth are connected, the mountains and walls are connected, soft as an apricot flower, thin as a paper page. I point a sword, open the door quickly and obey the law of Mr. Sanshon Jioho. Looking down at the words after a while, Qin Pingon was a little dazed, so he had to look away and close his eyes to rest. In this old book the first preface and the last few pages were torn out. In addition, several unconnected pages were also torn out in the middle, totaling 5 sheets. However, by chance Qin Pingon completed these 5 pages. This book is a ghost painting talisman, given to Qin Pingon by Li Huai at the Zhongtu Confucian Temple. It was given to Li Huai by the old man Yang from the pharmacy, and Li Huai then gave it to Qin Pingon, which is tantamount to sending charcoal in a timely manner. In the early years the Empress Dowager Dali received 5 offerings to the court from Lu's family on Fulu Street, one of which recorded a technique of penetrating walls and entering rooms. She is blind and completely ignorant, and only regards it as a wall-penetrating technique. Finally, Qin Pingon, who was brought into the palace with Xiaomo, got these 5 pages. Then Li Huai sent books. Going around and going around is truly a coincidence that is worthy of the name. Li Huai said that his brain hurts when he read it and he is not polite. Regarding reading, Li Huai is really like Mao Sai's comment, "We are not able to do it," and he is better than scholarly and diligently. Qin Pingon got this rare and unusual ancient Taoist book. Although it was not long, it helped a lot on the road of cultivation. It can be seen that there is a lot of knowledge, and Qin Pingon can even use the 4 words, "I point to a sword," to combine this complete formula with swordsmanship Pei Min, the bird's eye view of Feng Lufeng, who is Pei Min's unnamed disciple, and the lotus root. Hua Fudi Jingxin's swordsmanship is connected, and even Qin Pingon speculates that Bai Chong, who used to be from the small town of Liue, must have a killer's trump card which is related to this swordsmanship. Opening Qin Pingan's caged sparrow heaven and earth restraint, it is really as soft as an apricot flower, thin as a paper page as said in the formula, and the white clothes can easily pass through the wall back and forth with a sword, so Qin Pingon has to take it easy and must be on guard against it. By Chang's hand. Qin Pingon also remembered a strange thing that he couldn't understand. He remembered that when he was an apprentice in the dragon kiln, he often went to the mountains to search for soil with old man Yao. Every time Qin Pingon climbed up, he could see a mountain in the east. But after Liju Cave fell to the ground, the mountain disappeared out of thin air. To be precise, the 2 mountains lost their trace together. The latter is called Shuangfeng Mountain, also known as Potu Mountain, and Pingmu Mountain, which is about 50 miles away from this mountain, is also called Dongshan Mountain. Qin Ping once asked Cui Dongshan about the whereabouts of these 2 mountains, whether they were quietly removed by someone with great supernatural powers, or someone used the method of sealing the mountains, staying in place but being isolated from the world. Cui Dongshan didn't even clearly anyway. If there is nothing to do, let that embroidered tiger take the blame, and yell at the old whenever he gets the chance so as to enjoy his mouthful. When there were too many thoughts in his mind, Qin Pingon had a headache and a splitting headache, so he quickly restrained his thoughts, raised his arms and clenched his fists, and lightly tapped his forehead to suppress the small world of the human body. Qin Pingon stretched his arms a few times, closed his eyes, and gently knocked the back of his head on the back of the chair. Bai Zhe said that Qin Pingon will feel much better about bearing the real name of the monster clan when he enters the fairyland. Gukin stood in the corridor outside the door, hesitated for a moment, and then lightly knocked on the door. After Gukin entered the room and closed the door, Qin Pingon still closed his eyes and said, "If you want to ask, just ask." Sitting across the table, Gukin asked, "Can you really clear the memory of a qi practitioner?" Qin Pingon still didn't open his eyes and said softly, "It's easy to deal with a nascent soul realm. For example, the old lady Pu Lu, and the demon monk Shao Xing who hides in the lotus root blessed land. Dealing with the Yupu realm is not easy. I need to spend a lot of money. The key to reducing energy and aura is that it can't last long, just like wrapping a spark with layers of thick paper. The stronger the Taoist heart of a monk in the jade realm, the bigger the flame." Gukin said in a deep voice, "Being able to deal with the nascent soul realm is enough to shock the world. If you can erase the key memories of a nascent soul realm at will and prescribe the right medicine, wouldn't you have a fundamental method to deal with the inner demons?" Gukin said you. Qin Pingon deliberately ignored the word men, remained silent for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Don't forget, the word I used at the beginning was cut off." Reaching out to draw a mark on the table with his nails, Qin Pingon asked, "What do you use to fill this seemingly small but actually huge gap?" It's like cutting a piece of flesh from a person, no matter how big or small it is. It's not such a simple matter of healing from a wound or scarring or raw flesh from white bones. Qin Pingon said slowly, "Ordinary qi trainers, sect genealogy cultivators, and even many earth immortals may not know the truth, but you have no reason not to know." Gukin nodded and said, "Everything we see, hear, eat, smell, sorrow, joy, think is actually recorded in the soul one by one. Without knowing it, it is difficult to realize it." Qin Pingon said, "If you are a lady, the truth is preserved by witnessing." This sentence is generally used to describe a genius. In fact, it can be regarded as a side note of memory. Don't understand it. Speaking of talents, for example, the grandson of Zuan Duguan in Qizhou, Qingming Tianxia. Guken and Qin Pingon have a tacit understanding. This kind of misinterpretation, isn't it a misinterpretation? Are you familiar with Lu Qin, or am I more familiar? Why are you holding grudges against me? Go hold grudges against that big-mouthed Lu Xianyang. What do I hold grudges against a big mouth? I only care about petty minds like you. Qin Pingon continued. Secondly, whether it is Pu Lu or Shao Xing, Qin Ping is not deep in their memory, and their involvement is not extensive. It is relatively simple to cut. This is why I sent them to. One of the reasons for your hand is not just to add to the icing on the cake. Once they stay with me for a long time or stay in the Lulu Mountain to cultivate, they will almost completely lose the possibility of entering the Jade Realm. Just tamper with memory, delete subtracting this thing and adding something else. In the end, it is not too difficult to achieve the point of confusing the real with the fake. Nascent soul realm cultivators' mental disturbance is tantamount to idiot's dream. We can only move with the times for some people occasionally. Doing so is tantamount to voluntarily assuming a share of cause and effect. Those who practice the Tao, who doesn't pursue a life without branches or vines. What I wanted to do I couldn't do. Powerless. If you can do it, you don't want to do it. Powerful and unintentional. There is one more thing that Qin Pingon did not tell Gu Kan. Are there two identical snowflakes between heaven and earth? Jing Juzhong said he had seen it. This means that Jing Juzhong can allow any monk in the nascent soul realm to join the Jade at will without any demons. Qin Pingon even suspected that one of the purposes of Jing Zhezhong's retreat this time was to wait for the Huawei Tianma, who can be regarded as a fake 15th realm, to come to Baidi City on his own initiative and discuss the Tao. Gu Kan said, I will strive to establish a sect in April, and arrive at Aquarius Island on the first day of May. Qin Ping asked, puzzled, what are you in such a hurry for? Gu Kan looked at him. And NB's Qin Pingon became more and more confused. Gu Kan curled her lips. You're so smart. Qin Ping angrily said with a smile, don't be a fool. Gu Kan said, Lu Xianyang plans to set the wedding on the 5th day of May. Qin Pingon hesitated to speak and fell into a long silence. His face was stern, so he stood up, walked over to the window and looked out. Gu Kan's answer was something that Qin Pingon couldn't even imagine. Gu Kan also silently turned her head and looked towards the door. Tall boy, straw sandal boy, little slug. In the past they often walked together on the ridges of the field, holding dogtail grass in their mouths. It may be that their hometown is too small, their age is too young, their vision is too small, and they dare not think too much about the future. Lu Taoji needs to immediately cross the continent to go to the main hall for the cleansing of wronged people, and hand over Xiao Pu's magic robe, and ask an expert to help him peel off the cocoon, and carefully examine whether there are any traces left. Before he left Chongyang Temple, he told Xiao Pu to be careful to protect Uncle Cheng. This time he came to Aquarius Continent with 3 things in mind: protecting Master Qing for a period of time, going to Huzhou Yuan dynasty to return to the mountain to practice, and persuading Qin Pingon to be the chief guest minister of the Xishan Jianin lineage. Xiao Pu asked, what should Yuan Chaoxian do? Just let her hang out for a few years and sharpen her edge first? There is an expert in the main hall who has already figured out that Yuan Chaoxian is a natural talent in the Golden and Jade Forest, and he must take her back to the mountain from Aquarius Island. Lu Taoji nodded and said, although there are 9 times out of 10 catastrophes on the mountain, there is no escape from catastrophe, but a monk who cultivates his spirit internally and accumulates external skills can indeed weaken the catastrophe to a certain extent. She still needs to practice more in the world of mortals. Xiao Pu said, even so, senior brother Lu can't delay her best opportunity to practice Taoism. Lu Taoji said, I'm going to meet her, first pass on a sword technique. Junior sister Xiao doesn't need to teach from the side. We go down the mountain to save others according to fate, but they go up the mountain to practice Taoism to save themselves. Xiao Pu shook his head. I have gone through this calamity myself, so I don't have the spirit now, so I just hide here. The middle-aged Taoist priests are already tall and powerful, so they feel extremely oppressive, especially the women of medium stature. When they look at each other, they look like mountains pressing down on them. So that treasure tree was extremely nervous. When the other party sent the Taoist book, regardless of whether she understood it or not, the middle-aged Taoist just explained it word by word, and her mind went blank. Zhou Xian, who was as tall and thin as a bamboo pole, went to a back alley in Chongning County, and ran all the way back to Chongyang Temple. When he saw the old Taoist priest, the young man had a regretful expression on his face. When we went to find the person who rented the house to them, He also said that he was missing, only that the grandpa and grandson were in the house and left some scraps of money. The old Taoist stroked his beard with a smile and said, "If you don't have a fate, you can't get it if you ask for it. It's the same between you and that friend Baiyin. Don't be sad. Whether you can meet tomorrow or not, you will know tomorrow." Zhou Xian hummed. Song Juchuan, a little Taoist boy, asked suddenly, "Master Jing, have you ever heard of the term crane's breath?" The old man snorted and said, "How do you know this kind of Taoist terms?" Song Juchuan was stunned. "Really?" Qing Fengxian said with a smile. "Of course there is, but the saying on this mountain is not common, it is relatively uncommon. As a teacher you can know the phrase crane's breath and ordinary Taoists may not have heard of it." Song Juchuan was slandering endlessly, "That guy has a lot of eyes." After thinking about it, the old Taoist decided to go to the haunted house in Zhugan Hutong Yongjia County. He dipped in the talisman water and performed the eye purification technique. He saw 2 branches of wormwood hanging at the door, but they were not close to the door of the house. Without the shame, the old Taoist knocked on the head of the shop lightly, and soon a woman opened the door. She looked around and asked a strange question, "Master Wu?" The old Taoist was puzzled and said, "It's Miss Xue, right? Poor Taoist's surname is Qing and Taoist's name is Huilu. He practiced in Chongyang Temple. When he came here he was reminded by Daoist Wu. He came here to buy it with Miss Xue." The wormwood hanging at the door. Xue Rui was very puzzled, looked and looked but couldn't see anything. "Where is the wormwood?" There was indeed an oily young Taoist priest who had nothing to do with her before, and she said something like giving Qing a pair of love. Ordinary households hang calamus and wormwood to ward off evil spirits and avoid ghosts. That's all. Xue Rui hangs wormwood in this haunted house as a ghost? Thanks to that liar, Taoist figured it out. It's just that Xue Rui didn't care about these things. She was too lazy to argue with the old Taoist priest, turned around and left, and the door closed by itself. She just said, "You can take it yourself, don't talk about money with me, just give it away and not sell it." With this action she immediately calmed down the old Taoist priest, thinking that she was indeed a female ghost who could let Tong Shinjun set foot in this place. Xue Rui didn't care about wormwood or Chongyang concept. She was listless, her feet didn't touch the ground. She floated all the way back to the swing, swaying gently, a pair of embroidered shoes high and low. It seemed that as long as she didn't turn her head, there would be a Taoist priest holding a bowl squatting behind her, but when she turned her head there was no one there. Looking at those flowers and plants, she rubbed her eyes, looked intently, and was sure that there was indeed a missing pot of flowers that the Taoist hailed as the leader of the spring festival. Her eyes were bright and her smile was like a flower, as if filling in the vacancy of the potted flower. Pei Qian crossed continents to Yunyan country through a 3-mountain talisman, sat on a big tree branch on a hill outside the capital and drank silently. From a distance, the lights of Yilindu could be seen stretching like daylight. Pei Qian was not in a hurry to go to the Tongyin ferry over there, thinking about something. Behind him, someone hooked his feet on a branch, hung his head upside down, grimaced and said threatening words, "Little girl, guess who I am, are you afraid?" Pei Qian didn't even look at it and directly punched him backwards, hitting the opponent's forehead, and the big white goose pretending to hang himself swayed back and forth, screaming for pain. The young man in white with a mole between his eyebrows rubbed his forehead, turned around and sat beside Pei Qian. Cui Dongshan asked with a smile, "What are you thinking about?" Pei Qian shook his head. Cui Dongshan looked into the distance and murmured to himself, "The mountains and rivers of a continent have been broken to this point. Those who should be supporting the coffin and carrying the coffin are all new ghosts. There is no smoke for thousands of miles and the dead are like hemp. The corpses are exposed to the city and the wild and the heads belong to Taoism. Flying swallows return in spring, nesting in trees. I never thought that Tonggishao would come back to life so quickly. I just hope that the immortal masters on the mountain and the rich and powerful men from all over the world will not be so oblivious. Otherwise, if so many people die, they will die in vain." Worry. Pei Qian took out a jug of wine from the things close at hand, and handed it to Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan waved his hand, "Forget about drinking, I will quit drinking today." Cui Dongshan then rubbed his hands and said, "There are a few things as a junior brother, you have to report it to senior sister Pei. First of all, I have seen Yu Lu and you are welcome. Yu Lu is an open-minded person. He directly misunderstood that he was in the old Lu family. On the other side of the dynasty's territory, I met his ancestors' white clothes, and the latter gave him a box of elixir which was very precious. It was the fourth party known as 100 Days of Climbing Immortals, which was written by Zhou Xian, and this Zhou Xian is the so-and-so that senior sister Pei wrote on the talisman just now. Bai Chang's only disciple is that Zhou Xian who begs and entangles he Xiaoyang, and soon he will be one of Yu Lu's helpers in establishing the country. Yu Lu is a villain and a villain. He asked me if I could do it. I am a big man. Encountering such a problem, can you say no? In addition, the founder of Xiang Mansion of Huang Tingguo Wu Yi with the Taoist name Dongling, the eldest daughter of the old Jiaoqing Longzhou, has already started to make a new start on the bank of the Lin River, and start the mountain again. Li Pai has become the patriarch. If there is no accident, the name of the sect should be Chunyang Fu. She probably hopes to change the word in the future and become Chunyang Zong. The idea is good, so Wu Yi also has something that is not much. Not long ago, the little brother and Chao Qinglang brought those Tonggis Hao people who were willing to leave the blessed land of lotus roots and return to their hometowns to come here through a well connected to the mirage city of the Daquan dynasty. Chao Qinglang found the emperor's majesty. That is, the Yao sister you are familiar with, chatting very well. The atmosphere is harmonious. Half of the Qi refiners and their descendants of the Immortal family are willing to have a relationship with the Yao family in Daquan, and they lined up all night to chat with Yao Jin after signing all kinds of secret treaties, and having a backer, they hurried back to restore their respective countries, restore the gods, grab the territory, etc. As a reward, the Daquan dynasty will give us Qingping Jianzong a boat named Lei for free. Cars transcontinental ferry. Hearing this, Pei Qian, who was just drinking silently, finally said, "Why is it belong to your Qingping sword sect? It must be discussed in Luobashan Patriarch Hall before it counts." Cui Dongshan sighed, "These words are like flying swords poking countless holes in the heart of my little brother." Pei Qian raised the jug in his hand, "Stop talking about it, let's get on with the business." Cui Dongshan lamented, "Being sad first, then chilling, it will be double the damage." Pei Qian rolled his eyes. Cui Dongshan clasped the back of his head with both hands, shook his legs and said leisurely, "Over there in our blessed land, there is a female cultivator Sun Wanyan with quite good qualifications, Luo Fume, a direct disciple of Hugua Peixiang, and a swordsman who has just entered the golden body Chao and I. He is determined to learn some boxing skills with Yuan Huang, who went to Luopa Mountain to find my husband, Wu Jiang, a young hero who is unreliable and reliable, and He Qizhou, a female martial artist from Jiangzhou of Songlai Kingdom. After completing the task of protecting the road, I feel that the opportunity is rare and I am willing to go out for a long time. I have gained a lot of experience here in Tonggis Hao. I guess they are all on the way to Yunyan country together. You don't know where is Mr. Damaguan, the miraculous posture of preaching. I don't know how many men admire it and women love it. Sir never make mistakes, and when it comes to love between men and women, he is even more clean and self-sufficient, can't pick out the slightest flaw, but I don't know how many mistakes women's minds. Those who are the least self-defeating are the most deceitful, and there is no way." Pei Qian grinned. The word sounded good. "The woman she once called Sister Yao, the current Empress Yao Jinji, isn't she one of them?" Cui Dongshan said with a smile. "As for our chief Shou, who is busy and hardworking, he is flustered now. This is the first time he has met Mr. Xiaomo, who may not win the battle for the Dao, and he is holding back his energy and trying to prove himself. He brought 4 sword cultivators who came into being in the blessed land of lotus roots, and came to Tongya Island earlier than me and Chao Qinglang. Chief Shou also took away a woman whose real name was Shao Xing from the blessed land. Dead man, I took a trip to Tianmu Academy. She and Wen Yuan Shanzhong of Tianmu Academy cooperated seamlessly, bluffing many bystanders who were hiding behind the scenes." Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "That's all for the time being. After the report is over, I beg senior sister Pei to give you instructions." Pei Qian just said, "In fact, I really want to travel Howren with master, but I can't say it." Cui Dongshan laughed and said, "It turns out I was worried about this matter." Pei Qian squinted and said, "Is it funny?" Cui Dongshan immediately put his fingers together and wiped his mouth, shaking his head vigorously like a rattle. Pei Qian said, "Master asked me to tell you a word. He already has a clue for those spoilers from the wilderness, and there is an extra portrait in his heart. It is the wilderness sword cultivator with the alias Cardamom. Master let you relax. He has his own means, and if he has the opportunity to follow the clues, he might be able to find out that golden core realm talisman cultivator as well." Cui Dongshan imitated the white-haired boy and began to raise his arms and shouted, Mr. is wise, Mr. is martial, and Mr. is even more invincible than true invincible. Pei Qian said, Ma Kushuan is dead. The master was seriously injured. The long sword Yayo was broken in two, and the natal magic robe that carried the Yaozi's real name was also torn. As a result, the master took a trip to Yuzhu. For some reason, the Chongyang temple in the capital of Xiangguo was injured again. Master told me not to worry, but I wanted to, but I couldn't help it. Cui Dongshan nodded. Pei Qian said, Master's retreat this time, in addition to entering the Immortal realm, he also returned to the End realm. Cui Dongshan hesitated for a moment and asked curiously, This is a good thing, why do you still look frowning? Pei Qian kept silent and didn't drink. Cui Dongshan said, Outside the sky, I will help Li Xing and cooperate with those who are too tall to prevent the two worlds from colliding. The master is responsible for presiding over the big formation, and he is very capable of strengthening the physique of a martial artist. It is actually a matter of course for things to come from prosperity to return to the truth. Pei Qian said sullenly, Master did not rank among Guasian as the strongest. Cui Dongshan grinned and said, This kind of thing can't be forced. It should be and it should be. What's more, now that the two worlds of Howren and Wilderness are connected, and it happened to be a rare rain period before what? Weird people and things will come up, sir. It's a pity that you didn't get the word strongest, but it's not enough to make you so depressed, big sister, right? Pei Qian stared into the distance in a daze, not knowing whether he saw the day before yesterday or wanted to see the day after tomorrow. Cui Dongshan shook his head and shoulders, shook his sleeves and said, Master, don't worry, I will find that who stole your master sooner or later when the time comes. Cui Dongshan, who woke up suddenly, seemed to be strangled by someone, unable to speak a word. Slowly turning his head, Cui Dongshan asked tentatively, Master, could it be? Pei Qian nodded and said, Blame me. Even Cui Dongshan was scratching his head, not knowing how to speak. If it were someone else who said such things to Cui Dongshan face to face, Cui Dongshan would have a big mouth when he jumped up. Are you sure you stole my husband's martial arts? I don't know the heights of the sky and the depths of the earth, how many times have I won the strongest and how many gifts of martial arts have been obtained? The answer turned out to be Pei Qian. So Cui Dongshan was a little confused. Pei Qian said softly, At first I thought it would be a small surprise for Master, but now I'm fine. I'm really a loser, right? Even though Cui Dongshan had hundreds of reasons in his mind, he didn't think he could persuade Pei Qian not to do so. No use at all. So Cui Dongshan had no choice but to use an unavoidable method. He stretched out his palm to cover his mouth, called his husband by his name and whispered, Qin Ping, Qin Ping. Pei Qian was furious, turned his head and stared and said, Big white goose, are you trying to die? In an instant, Qin Pingon seemed to know the matter through Cui Dongshan's complaint, and without hesitation he immediately used some kind of supernatural power to temporarily release the white-clothed god, and spoke with his disciples and students with a heartfelt voice, and his tone was hard to hide. His face was full of smiles. It's outrageous not to say it earlier. I'll leave this chestnut first. Don't say much. Let's teach Master a lesson for a proud student who has committed a crime. Cui Dongshan was extremely wronged and wailed, Sir, you are happy and elder sister is relieved. Is it just me who is not a human? Ah. The series after that were actually prepared by Cui Dongshan in advance, and he deliberately complained to his husband. But why didn't the big white goose expect that the big sister didn't do anything? For the first time, Cui Dongshan, who was a little embarrassed, scratched his face and made a mistake. Pei Qian raised his head and took a sip of wine, raised the back of his hand to wipe the corners of his mouth. His demeanor changed completely, his expression was no longer gloomy, and he said with raised eyebrows, Thank you, little brother. Taking advantage of her good mood, Cui Dongshan said with a smile, In addition to Yu Xiefu and Lu Suiyu, Lu Yuzhou is also in the capital. Pei Qian twitched the corner of his mouth. On my master's side I can pretend not to hear certain hidden meanings. As for your big white goose, as far as I'm hiding, it's because Lu Yuzhou likes me, so it's a big deal. What he likes him has nothing to do with me, Pei Qian. If you are a big girl you must get married. So what if I become an old girl? In this world there is already a master and she has rivers and lakes to leave. Cui Dongshan clicked his tongue and said, If Lu Yuzhou knows what elder sister wants, I don't know whether Lu Yuzhou should be thankful that he doesn't need to be wrapped in a sack, or he will be so sad that his heart will be twisted into a ball. Pei Qian showed her signature smile. Cui Dongshan immediately changed his words, jumped up, patted his stomach, laughed and said, "The jejunum is like thunder and I invite you to eat snails and the hot pot is also available. Let's go for supper." Pei Qian got up and said, "Go to the Tongyin Ferry." Cui Dongshan Xiaoji pecked at the rice. "Master, you don't know, and now the sword fairy Mi Dai is showing off and the limelight is like a moment. Let's ride the wind together to Yulindu." Yunyan country, located in the middle of Tongye continent, is a small country with a basin situation and a place in the palm of your hand. Although it is not a vassal of any dynasty, the only ones that can be sold are actually the name of the capital of vinegar, barley wine and ink making. But now it is the entire Tonghishao, the most prestigious country. The Yunyan Qin family temporarily built a Yulindu to facilitate the exchange of immortal masters on the mountain. When the Fengyuan ferry docked here before, Miyu, who stayed at home, just happened to stand by the railing of the boat, and there were whispers one after another, obsessive and blurred eyes, excited expressions, and even there was the woman's scream. They worked tirelessly and waited for the rabbit just to see Shangmi Jianxian from afar. This annoyed Miyu so much. "Those rich women from various countries are fine. You are all cultivators, shouldn't you be so selfish? Nowadays there are not a few women fighting for me, yes, and justice, and their number tends to increase, and they are almost ready to form cliques in the capital of Yunyan Kingdom." As the chief enshrined of Qingping sword sect, Miyu and Mi Dai Jiangxian didn't have a place in the temporarily established ancestral hall, and the place was given to a young man named Chao Qinglang in Jing Xingfeng. After much deliberation they only found one reason: probably this is the unique state of mind of a Sandan sword fairy. Thinking of this, they admired the virtuous Mi Lang even more. They really couldn't imagine what kind of Fengshen Mi Jianxian was on the top of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, alone all year round, lying drunk and asleep under the clouds and clouds. The Qingping sword sect, which is the sect under the Luopa mountain and the dragon crossing the river, has Mi Jianxian sitting in it. Wouldn't it be a waste of everything if it didn't open the mirror? It's hard for us, Moreau. It's no wonder that Mi Jianxian, who is facing the wind in Yushu, can't hide his unruly and desolate body every time he sees him. As for me, yes, real state of mind, it couldn't be simpler. I'm just a fool. I don't deserve it. Look, Mi Jianxian is in a very good mood today and he is willing to drink with others and have a good drink. My family. Mi Lang walks with one hand behind his back and one hand and twirling the jug. He's really unrestrained and unrestrained. Who is it that can drink at the same table as Mi Jianxian? It doesn't matter what his status is as long as he is not a woman. Before that, God of Wealth Liu of Iashao participated in the Qingping sword sect ceremony, and sent out a Tongyin ferry directly with a big hand. Although Tongyin is not a cross-continental ferry, its cargo capacity is still better than that of the overturned Ink Dragon boat on Luopa Mountain in Shangzhou. Now this Tongyin ship has replaced the Fengyuan ferry and docked at Yulindu, and it is almost becoming a sword fairy's private residence that belongs exclusively to Miyu. Tonight, on the second deck of the ferry, Miyu set up a table with 2 jugs of wine. Feng Xuetao, who was drinking at the same table, cooked himself and cooked a few cold dishes to go with the wine. Feng Xuetao, who was born as a field cultivator, is a little bit good. He can also be particular about it and he can even make ends meet. He knows all kinds of crafts. Feng Xuetao joked. It can be seen that Mi Jianxian is very popular here. Miyu smiled wryly and laughed at himself. If fellow Daoist Qingmi reveals his identity, he will only be more popular than a piece of trash like me. Feng Xuetao said helplessly, "Forget it, now my reputation can be regarded as being in the rotten street of Tonghishao. If I had known this, I would not have agreed to Jiang Daoyu as an enshrinement to Yu Guizong, who is a son of labor. This Iashao Ascension Realm field cultivator, Taoist named Qingmi, is wearing a python suit, a white jade belt and an iron mace pinned to his waist. I followed Jiang Shangzhen to the famous Luopa mountain before. Only a few steps away from Feng Xuetao, there was a young man with a yellow hat and green shoes, and a girl with an ermine hat with rosy cheeks. Afterwards, Feng Xuetao, who was himself in Ascension Realm, was terribly frightened. After returning to Tonghishao, he followed Jiang Shangzhen to the Yugui Zone Patriarch Hall. The procedure was extremely simple and he became a registered enshrinement. However, Feng Xuetao found that everyone looked at him with strange eyes. Feng Xuetao didn't know the reason until he went out for a walk alone in the blessed land of cloud caves. And now on Izhou Mountain, everyone is talking about himself. The outside world said that it was because of Jiang Thief's kind invitation that Feng Shuatao was willing to lower his status and serve as an enshrinement of Yu Guizhong. After all, his cultivation base was even higher than that of the suzerain Wei Ying. Regarding this matter, it was rumored that Jiang Shangzhen was so shameless that he knelt and kowtowed with Feng Shuatao. His head was bloody, almost knocked his head off. And one of the conditions Feng Shuatao put forward at that time was that he was very wild and very manly. In the blessed land of Yunku, there must be a woman serving him every day to warm Feng Zueto's bed. It's also reasonable, since Feng Shuatao is not good at being able to mix with Jiang Shangzhen, a prodigal and prostitute who has a mother-in-law in every village. In his hometown of Aizhao, Feng Shuatao has never been so miserable after being a Shanzhua Yeshu for so long. Even if he doesn't take his reputation seriously, he can't be shameless. Of course, Miyu heard about these gossips and he couldn't be happier, but the person involved was sitting opposite to drink and he still had to be polite, so he borrowed a truth from the group of young people in the summer palace. Look at the 2 words of freedom on the paper. How to write this word, you will know whether you are free or not. Feng Shuatao nodded, picked up the wine bowl. That's a good sentence, it's worth taking one. Miyu bumped the bowls against them, finished their drinks and said, for that matter, fellow Daoist Lao Qingmi made a few more trips. For the excavation of Dadu from the alliance in the early stage to the day when the second dragon raised its head in February, and the establishment of the Patriarch Hall, the early progress can be said to be smooth and it has made a good start. Unexpectedly, a shit-stirring stick that smashed talismans randomly popped out, causing people's hearts to be distracted. No matter begging for money or getting enough to eat, you can't lose your life. For this reason Miyu, the 2 hometown veterans Jianxiu Xingyun and Lu Shui Huangting of Taiping Mountain, the Immortal named Longmen of Taishu Mountain in Zhongtu, and even Qingtong of Xinyala were secretly mobilized. In the end, Huangting was the only one who bumped into that guy by luck. Even so, Huangting still couldn't kill him on the spot. The most hateful and terrifying thing is the good fortune of the other party. 2 figures floated down beside the table and Miyu quickly got up to meet them. Pei Qian clasped his fists and said with a smile, Chief Mi, Senior Qingmi. Feng Shuatao nodded with a smile and returned the courtesy. I have seen Master Pei, Master Cui. Pei Qian took out a cotton cloth package from the things close at hand, handed it to Miyu and explained, it was the millet grains that I asked me to hand over to you. It contains dried fish, melon seeds and preserved fruits. Miyu was in a good mood and the haze in his heart was swept away. If Sect Master Cui was not present, Sword Immortal Mi really wanted to step down as the chief enshrinement of Qingping Sword Sect tonight, cut first and play later, and could rush to Luopa Mountain tomorrow. Scold me for being a pick? Just scold and promise not to answer back anyway. When will I, Miyu, be able to shoulder the burden? Cui Dongshan stretched out a palm with a smile and patted Mi Dajian on the shoulder. Mi Dajian is overqualified and the burden on his shoulders is still light. Miyu didn't know how to retaliate. Cui Dongshan said with a playful smile. Fortunately, Mi Dajiangxian is one of his own, so he is not willing to scold me. Otherwise he would put himself in my position and scold me instead. He would definitely say something like, young man is so handsome but unfortunately he is not dumb. If this sword fairy doesn't knock you out of with one sword, you're not full. After all, Miyu was Miyu. Holding that package he was still in a good mood. Except for Mr. Yin Guan, if someone can disgust me Miyu with words, it means that I have not cultivated enough. Cui Dongshan waved his palm towards Miyu and said with a smile, Chairman Mi, I'll give you a holiday. It will be over for a month. You are allowed to go back to the Shangzong and find Mi Li. Miyu was overjoyed. Really? Cui Dongshan asked back. If you don't take it seriously, then take it as a fake? Miyu smiled and said, it must be taken seriously. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, I'm still Jiang Shangzhen, does it rhyme? Pei Qian reminded, it's almost ready. Cui Dongshan clasped his fingers together and muttered something. After a while 2 chairs walked and stand still beside the table. Pei Qian stretched out his hand to rest his forehead but he couldn't see it. The younger generation of Lizhu Dongtian, who was the first to put forward the idea, was gradually recognized by Haoran Tianxia as the generation of opening the door. As the great disciple of the young hermit official, Pei Qian is of course one of the very young Master Jijia who was able to become famous in Jinjiazi early on, and is at the forefront. As soon as Pei Qian took his seat he stood up again. I'm going to visit the blessed land of lotus roots. Cui Dongshan blinked. About to break through? Pei Qian nodded. Breakthrough. In the Lost Mountains, the boy in green and the girl in black are not sleepy. They sit on the stone table over the bamboo building and eat melon seeds. The two parties bump melon seeds together like a wine bowl and then eat melon seeds. In the house where the door was never locked, the old cook was lying on the wicker chair and had a dream. He saw a phoenix hairpin resting on it, or maybe a butterfly stuck to it. At the foot of the mountain, Jing Dafeng spent a long night alone and could not sleep, scratching his ears and cheeks, muttering that he couldn't do it. How consummate he was playing hard to get. Could it be that the tricks written in the book were all deceptive? The Taoist priest next door is reading at night in the study. It is a very serious Taoist book, and it is also a book that very few Xianwei can understand. The Taoist priest occasionally dipped his fingers in his saliva and gently turned the pages of the book. The Taoist and the words in